You're listening to The Pete Sheppard Show.
It's good to be back.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Pete Sheppard Show here with the Coastal Sports Network. Tell, I'm feeling a lot better, huh? How's everybody doing this morning? Man, oh man, it's already Thursday, January 30th. Wow, 2025. Huge show lined up for you today. 4 great guests coming up, and I'll get to them in a second. Thanks for checking us out here on the Coastal Sports Network video platform. Following me on Twitter, X at PShep326, across all our Facebook pages. On my Facebook page, Tampa Joe's up at Tampa. Believe that? Hence Tampa Joe's, one of the great sports bars in America. And also on the Coastal Sports Network Facebook page, CSN Florida, Rumble, YouTube, Kick, Spotify, LinkedIn, Twitch. And of course, you can call or text the show at 727-858-6650. And right above, you know the drill, right? Check us out, sr1029thegame.com, powered by the app, sr1029thegame.com. I recommend using the app when you're in your car or away from your video platform, whatever you're using, your phone or your laptop or whatever, or tablet to watch this great network. I would recommend using SR1029 The Game. You can punch up like some of the video stuff on your car, but use the app. It's much better. Anyway, good morning, everybody. Lots to get to today. This is the week before the Super Bowl, so only a couple more days. Next week, we'll really delve into, start breaking down. We got preview sound again today and all that stuff. Some interesting conversation on Sirius XM NFL Radio with Bill Belichick and Andy Reid from yesterday. That I'll play some highlights of that for you as well. But huge show lined up for you today. 8:05 a.m. from WQAM for his weekly visit. Trevor Harris, 8:30. Bill Spiros from the Boston Herald and Bookies.com. 9 o'clock, Mick Colaggio will talk some NHL and Boston Bruins, and they continue. They are so frustrating to watch as they get humiliated by Buffalo a couple nights ago. 7-2. I can't figure them out. I don't know. And then a big old Massachusetts broadcaster, Hall of Famer, Glenn Ordway, my old partner in crime, will join me at 9:30 a.m. And lo and behold, somebody that we did work for him, David Field of Odyssey, the CEO, has resigned. What a shock with the hundreds of millions of dollars in bankruptcy court that they're involved in. What a shock. Talk about someone ruining their dad's legacy. Just unfucking believable. Just absolutely unbelievable. Barrett Sports Media, who's out there, I know Angel knows who it is, does great media columns. He's a good guy. I've met him. I know him a little bit. And he had the story this morning, and or from last night, yesterday afternoon. All these anonymous people saying the same thing that Glenn and I and others that work for Odyssey have been talking about for years. And then the people that they keep bringing in and trust themselves are not broadcasting people. They're banker people, financial people, and they fucked it all up. And that's what you get. So anybody around, we have texts all the time. And welcome aboard, Angel Martinez. We have people all the time because Odyssey is not just about Boston. It's about Philadelphia and a bunch of other markets. Whatever station you are working on at Odyssey and terrestrial radio, I would say get your resume ready because there's going to be more cutbacks and layoffs. And it doesn't matter about ratings. Doesn't matter. People got to get this through their head in the terrestrial radio business. It doesn't matter what company you work for, because most of them are all going bankrupt in terrestrial radio. They don't give a damn about the ratings, and they sure as hell don't give a damn about you. I promise you that. They don't care. And if you worked in this business long enough, you know how cutthroat it is. So just get ready. For now, we'll focus on Odyssey. If you work for an Odyssey station, I know Angel has in Philadelphia. We have a lot of friends that work at Odyssey stations. I wish them all well, but you're fucked. It's just a matter of time. Anyway, good morning, Angel. How are you?
Good morning, Pete. I am good. Kind of a different way to fire up the show first thing this morning. But yeah, Odyssey, I mean, it took them a while to finally get the get the memo and or get the clue to figure out that it's time to make a change as things are falling apart. And
Well, David wrecked Daddy's legacy,
yeah,
and this is what happens, in a lot of family media businesses, and they're all going right down the toilet. It's
yeah.
just, I mean,
It's the
I
same
love
way.
some of these anonymous quotes, and here's one. Here's a great one. A lot of these people talked to Jason Barrett yesterday one former Odyssey employee said the writing for Phil's exit has been on the wall for some time. So what have I been telling you? And if you follow Glenn on Twitter, the same thing. I mean, we're not afraid to talk about it. We're not talking out of turn. This is not personal. This is professional. And I've certainly met David Field a number of times, the guy who stepped down, and I was never ever really impressed, to be honest with you. But it is what it is. You have Daddy that hands you the keys to the kingdom, and you mess it all up. Here's one anonymous quote: "When I saw the thing that the Texas court had finally approved, the bankruptcy, the first thing I said was, I wonder how long it's going to be before David Field leaves his job. The answer was 3.5 hours." One person said, "Not a surprising move based on how poorly the company is performing. It appears as if the purchase of the CBS clusters did him in." Yep. Meaning the 98.5, the Sports Hub and that stuff, and then he sold them. They're turning to Kelly Turner to succeed. I know some of this stuff is like really boring, but here we go. This is key, and then I'll move on. Another programming executive who previously led one of Odyssey's top market brands shared, and this has got to be either Boston or Philadelphia, Angel. It's one more somebody. I think I have a feeling I know who it is. Quote: "I think it's very telling that a current Odyssey employee at the highest levels of the company was not made interim CEO, but a member of the board whose background looks way more like a banker than a broadcaster. I think that's very telling for the future. We'll know more when they name a CEO. Will it be somebody with extensive broadcast experience, or will it be somebody from an outside industry on the periphery of broadcast who is much more of a financial banker type than a broadcaster type? It's too early to tell what the future is." One person said from an Odyssey News Talk station employee, I think I know who this is too, "A lot of people were waiting for this. In fact, if it didn't happen, people would have been even further delusioned." And more quotes of that ilk. So that's just, there's your little radio insider stuff for the day. Sad, because a lot more people are going to lose their jobs because of incompetent ownership.
Yep.
And management. Yep. So get ready. For those of you in Boston, Philadelphia, and other places around the country that Odyssey is a part of, there's going to be massive cutbacks again, as there will with all these other radio stations, terrestrial-wise. That's why we do this, because this is awesome, and we have a great platform here. And Angel's built up this the webpage on sl1029thegame.com. And this is where it's at, baby. This is where it's at, and we're growing, getting bigger, stronger, faster, just like Steve Austin. And people like, not Stone Cold Steve Austin, the real Steve Austin. Lee Majors, the $6 million man. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. Worst action figure doll ever in the history of toys. Had a bionic eye, looked through it, and it was like a reverse binocular. It wasn't something that brought it closer, like Steve Austin's left eye. He would act like a kid. This one, when you look through it as a kid, it was like, when like you turn the binoculars backwards, that's what it was like. I'm like, you made it far away. You did the opposite.
Did the opposite. Who's the genius who put that one together?
Oh, my goodness. Unfortunately, we had a tragic incident last night right before 9 o'clock, and I want to touch on this briefly, and then because this platform is usually, and I like to do an escape from the real world, and I'm not doing this just because there were several figure skaters involved, Olympic figure skaters who have not been identified yet, family and some friends and family members were on that horrific crash yesterday outside of Reagan International Airport, and with the Black Hawk helicopter that was flying dark and signals got crossed or whatever. It certainly seems like helicopter crashed into, we've seen the video, it's awful, crashed into the plane, 60 passengers on board. They're coming from Wichita, Kansas during a training session. 3 soldiers were on board by the helicopter. The crash happened right before 9 p.m. Eastern time. It was a training flight. And it's bizarre because that is one of the most, in the world, it is one of the most monitored airspace in the world. It's 3 miles south of the White House and the Capitol. So, look, I know, I don't know, Angel, if in your military experience you were ever on a Black Hawk. I know you jumped out of planes. I know you did a lot of things. I hope this was just, it's an unfortunate accident. I just don't know how in this day and age that this happens with all the collision stuff that's involved. And so it looks like, and it certainly looked like the plane, the American Airlines flight was coming into land, and it was hit from behind or sort of in the middle with the video. And again, I'm no expert, but just quickly, I wanted to get your thoughts on this ex-military guy. And you know, with all the technology that we have, and particularly over that particular airport, where it's monitored so heavily, it's so sad. My heart and thoughts and prayers go out to everybody, all the families, because it certainly doesn't look like there's going to be any survivors. But anyway, just wanted to get your thoughts, being the ex-military guy, expert on the show.
Normally when you do any kind of, and there's been many missions that we've done where you go dark, but usually you're never around a C-130.
Can you explain just in layman's terms? I mean, I think I get it, but I want what does going dark actually mean?
So you would have, there's no lights or anything else on the helicopter or the aircraft, depending on where you are. There's nothing on visibly. There's also at times where, and it's difficult to end up doing, but you also have what's called the NVGs, night vision goggles, that are used. A lot of times it's used when you're in the vehicles. And that's, again, when there's small lights on the front of the vehicle where it's enough to illuminate the NVGs to see where you guys are going. But going dark is basically there's no lights, no anything, no communication. There's a particular place where they want you to pretty much attack, and so that's what going dark means in the most layman's terms. But usually on something like this, I've never seen it where it's been in a high traffic area, especially near an airport, unless for some reason they were doing something in extra security for the president. Is the only thing I can think of, because that is a very, very secured airspace, other than up in New York, but that is the most secured airspace in America.
In the world.
Yeah.
In the world.
So to me, it was someone, either an air traffic controller, and again, we know they've been worked to the bone. So it could have been possibly an air traffic controller that did not see it for whatever odd reason. And if they were using any kind of older technology, sometimes when you go dark, what it's supposed to be is obviously you don't see them on the radar at all.
Wow.
But there is supposed to be technology for us to be able to, in a heavy area like that, to be able to still know, oh, there was something coming across that airspace. And
wouldn't there be something on the helicopter? Now, I think it's. Look, I'm just going by the video. I'm looking at it again. The plane is coming in. I mean, and usually, I mean, there's the collision, whatever you want to call it, collision alert, beep, goes off if you're getting even remotely close to an oncoming airplane, the commercial flights anyway, if I'm not correct. But I'm sure the same thing applies to the Black Hawk helicopter, right? If you're getting close to another plane, there's got to be some sort of a warning light or a sound that comes on, right?
Normally, it's not the case. If you're coming in a military aircraft, yeah. In a C-130, C-141s, a bigger aircraft, yes. On the helicopters, it's rare because it's normally stuff like this doesn't happen. So it's something you don't look for. But if, again, depending on who is doing what at the moment, should have the helicopter been able to see or at least visibly look if there's something coming in, there should have been a case. But depending, again, if they were distracted, whatever the case may be, once you go dark, I mean, no one should be able to either, they'll be able to, to a sense, you'll be able to hear the person, hear what's going on. But somewhere in between there, the relation to whomever was in charge as far as the military craft and the civilian tower, there should have been that communication saying, hey, we're doing a joint exercise. Please make aware at this time, this is the airspace that we're going to use. So somewhere in between here, someone really screwed up. And unfortunately, it took a lot of lives in the process. But normally stuff like this is never done in a high traffic area.
Yeah. All right, and that's all I'm going to say about it, because I don't know all the information. I'm sure specifics are going to come out, and I'm sure people are going to start pointing the finger, blame pie, and I don't want to do any of that stuff because I'm not anywhere near qualified to realize. That's why I think, Angel, you summed it up great points and very succinctly. So we'll just wait. Just a tragedy that all those people lost their lives falling in the Potomac, I believe. Most of them, I mean, that's frigid water, not to mention the crash, and you're in the Potomac, and it's, horrible weather this time of year, I mean, temperature-wise, anyway. All right. If any more information comes in, we will let you know. I just know members of the U.S. figure skating team and some of their parents and friends were on board that plane, as well as a couple of Russian figure skaters as well. They have already reached out. Again, nobody's been identified, but the Russian government has reached out to express condolences about the loss of everybody. So it's just it's a horrible, horrible thing, and man, to happen at that airport. But okay. And obviously, it's closed for the time being until God only knows when. All right, let's move on. Let's go to the lighter side of life, shall we? To the world of sports. Thanks everybody for reaching out yesterday. No, I wasn't dying or anything like that. Just major GI issues, and I woke up and I could hardly talk. I mean, my throat was like, I thought, geez. And I've been staying away from peanut gallery because she's been very sick the last 4.5 days. She's finally getting better the last day and a half. A bunch of my friends, this thing is going around. Patrick Gilroy had it. Doesn't matter where you are around the country. Everybody's been sort of getting this little thing, but pretty much back to normal today. Just had to take a few hours yesterday. By like 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, I was feeling much better. Internally, physically, mentally, all that stuff. But I did hear you, Angel, yesterday with Rock a little bit, talking about what was going on in Tampa Bay. I don't want to spend too much time on it today. I'm going to try and get some people on tomorrow. But once again, I still don't, we do, and before we get to a whole plethora of other topics, and the NBA is going to come into play today because Adam Silver on the Dan Patrick Show yesterday, had some interesting things to say about what he wants possibly to see in the NBA, which is cutting it down to 40 minutes a game and have from 12 minutes a quarter to 10 minutes a quarter. Just what everybody wants to see. NBA players going down to 10, complaining that it's too long of a game now. And I know they play more minutes than anybody in the world by 8 minutes, but we'll get into that, and I think it's crazy. It's another bad look for the NBA. I think when you want to talk about, but maybe that people think that's going to help load management. No, it doesn't matter. You could have 5-minute quarters, and you still have somebody complaining about load management. Anyway, Angel. But as far as the Tampa situation, you guys had a pretty good discussion yesterday about it, and everybody's still very confused about what exactly is going to happen. Rick Horrow, sports business guru, was out of the country today, so I know he's been on top of it. He can't join us, but I don't know. Did you guys come to any conclusion? I heard a little bit yesterday, in and out of my naps I was taking. Could you guys come to any conclusion about what the hell is going on with the Tampa Bay Rays and the Trop and relocation or any of that stuff, whether it's Ybor City or St. whatever?
No, it's pretty much still the same because you got to figure it. So the St. Pete Council, the last of it was, they had approved saying, sure, it's going to take about $59 million in order to fix the roof and other things that ended up happening because of the hurricane. And then at the same time, they're also saying, well, why in the world would we want to spend $59 million when $1 billion stadium is about to be built in just a couple more years? Mm-hmm. So the question then becomes, because in all honesty, it's the truth as well. You have a town in St. Pete that is thriving, but at the same time, there's areas as well that need attention. So $59 million, you're looking to spend it on the Rays Stadium. It's also not guaranteed that it would be ready, even though it's a paper mache roof. It wouldn't be ready for 2026, which means now not only would the Rays be playing at Steinbrenner Field for the 2025 season, where in the world would they play for the 2026 season, where in the meantime, it was 2027 to 2028 when they were thinking about the new stadium being complete if everything goes well. So in order to change things up, and everybody knows when it comes down to logistics, now you would have to figure out how in the world would you make it even feasible to turn around and say to their contractors, hey, remember that deal that we had in place and we thought everything was going to be good for 2027 and we'll start dismantling things and taking on. How about we move it up? So it just seems like between St. Pete and the Rays are sitting on it. I think St. Pete Council basically told the Rays, we're not going to pay for $59 million, and then you guys got to figure out where to be at for the next 2 years. So that's where it stands right now. It's the Rays would have to seriously consider where to play and basically 2026 and maybe even 2027 if they decide we're not repairing this thing. We're just going to let it slide until it comes down.
Unless they stay, even to next year at Steinbrenner Stadium, where they're going to play this year, right down the street from Ray J. So.
Yeah, but the Steinbrenners apparently already said that they don't, because of all the improvements they already did there, which was made for the Yankees. And I understand it for the, for the Tarpons that end up playing there as well, the minor league team. They were like, nope, we gave you guys a 1-year deal. We're not giving you guys 2 years.
They got nowhere else to go.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh my goodness! Now the Rays did land Ha-Sung Kim to he signed with the Rays, agreed to a 2-year deal last night worth $29 million. Contract includes an opt-out after the first year, which is notable since he's expected to miss the early part of the season after undergoing shoulder surgery late last season. He's 29 years old. Last year, where he slashed batted .233 with 11 home runs and 22 stolen bases in 121 games for the Padres. And earlier this winter, they reported that ranked him as the number 14 available free agent of the 2024-25 offseason. One scout said, talented defensive shortstops with 3 years of league average offensive production are always in demand. It's I don't know. It seems like a lot of money for somebody batted .233 with a slugging percent 330, 370, 96 OPS, 11 home runs, 22 stolen bases, 121 games. Okay. All right. There you go. Tampa Bay Rays with their new great shortstop, free agent infielder, Ha-Sung Kim, has been hired 2 years worth $29 million. Okay. That was me. Sorry about that. All right. 727-858-6650. 727-858-6650. Some sound today. There's we'll do an NBA and NHL rundown, I think, a little bit later on. We'll have time. It's only going to be like an hour show today. We're here till 10, but I got 4 guests coming up, so it's going to be, we're going to be moving around all over the place. A couple of NFL notes. Some interesting stuff. Yesterday, I did hear this, Mad Dog Russo, and I hate to say it, I sort of agree with him. I mean, I like Chris a lot. Some of the stuff, he went off on some, I'm not even going to play it because it's so stupid, the take he had on Patrick Mahomes and how it's not like a real dynasty because it's all about him. And he started going on, he started rattling off names about the Pack. Maybe I will play it in a little bit later, just the audio. But interesting take here about the Buffalo-Kansas City game and how it was handled by CBS. I wonder if he would have said this if the game was on ESPN. But I don't necessarily say he's full of crap here. But anyway, judge for yourself.
Number one, listen, I shouldn't get on him because what I know about TV, but what I do know about TV, CBS did poorly. What an atrocious job at the end of the Buffalo-Kansas City game there on Sunday afternoon. Number one, they did not show the replay properly of the catch by Kincaid. They saw it from the side, so you really couldn't see how bad the drop was. If you see it now, how do you know how bad the drop is? It is so horrific about not showing you the proper replay. You see, obviously, Allen, he makes this pass. You can't tell how bad it is. His body's in front. That is ridiculous, terrible. And then, and it's not Nance's fault, they spent 20 minutes telling us there was a flag on the field. They had the yellow flag on the field. So if you're a Buffalo fan, you think there's a penalty, and so you might get the automatic first down in the last drive of the year for your team because they put the penalty flag up. And Jimmy, for 10 minutes, told us, hold on now, let's see if there's a flag. We think there's a flag, and we didn't even know that there was no flag because we got our hopes up. And then finally, 5 minutes later, they finally showed us the right replay of Kincaid. And that is when Romo jumped in and said, boy, you got to catch that. It wasn't until the Kansas City drive where you saw the fact that Kincaid had the ball in his hands and he dropped it. So CBS, 57 million people watched this game. CBS had the wrong replay of the original Kincaid drop. Then they told you there was a flag. There was no flag. And they spent 3 minutes on it. And then finally after that, you saw the proper replay of Kincaid, which prompted Romo to say something. That is a horrendous. Listen, I'm no TV expert. We all in Arrowhead. That is number one.
He's not wrong at all. And to piggyback on top of that, the other part that happened afterwards, first of all, there was never a picture of the flag on the field. I still have yet to see it except across my scroll where it said flag. And we talked about this on Monday a little bit. And the ref never said, the refs always say there is no foul on the play for pass interference, the ball was tipped. There is no foul for this or that, the player wasn't offside. There is no foul for this or that, the man was eligible downfield. They always explain when they pick up the flag. They never did. And then the idiots in Kansas City, this is how it works. In the host city, you have a beat reporter that is allowed, they call it a pool reporter, that is allowed to go in and speak to the referees to get to get some answers for questionable calls. Nobody went in. Nobody went and talked to him. Sean Hockley, right, I believe, was the ref. Nobody went in and talked to him for Kansas City, so it was never. Why should they? They want to hear, I don't. And that's the baffling part. I still don't know what happened with the flag. I'm assuming the radio people saw it, the TV people saw it. And I'm assuming it wasn't just a little flag scroll that came across, because radio people look at TV monitors as well a lot of the times. But we never saw a flag on the field. Now, there have been other times in an NFL game we don't see a flag on the field. And we don't physically see it. It's there. We don't physically see it. But the refs always say why they picked it up. Always say that. All of a sudden, I forgot. They didn't do it. They did not do it. So, interesting. It is an interesting take there. It would have been a difficult catch for Kincaid, no question about it, but I've seen tougher catches made in my lifetime. And I still don't know if that flag, like I said, there are those out there, including, I don't know what to think. If the flag was going to be on Kansas City, we're going to call some cheesy 5-yard illegal contact call. And it's an automatic first down. It would have been declined because of the yardage on the play that the Bills got. Or would they have brought it back because of some cheesy call on the Buffalo Bills? Hence, the ineligible man downfield or illegal contact or whatever call they want to make up at the time, and screw the Bills again. So, depending on what you want to believe. All I know is I wanted to hear, after all of that bullshit, I wanted to hear an explanation from the refs. I still don't know, and we probably never we never will know, because the pool reporter for the Chiefs didn't go in and ask the referees about it. Unfortunate. Andrew, we talked off the air before about how much commercials are going to cost. Well, for the Super Bowl coming up. So at least 10 commercials are going to air during Super Bowl 59 on Fox that have sold for $8 million. Fox reported in November that it sold out ad spots. And what it said, it believed to be record pricing. That's Fox CEO Lachlan Murdoch, I said at the time. As spots are dwindling, the prices increased. According to reports, Super Bowl ads normally increase by about 100,000 each year, but this year the increase was really closer to 500,000. Jesus God Almighty! Now, here is a sample of what you are going to get in a second here. Anheuser-Busch, Meta, Pepsi-Cola, Frito-Lay, Taco Bell, Uber Eats, and others will vie to win over the more than 120 million viewers expected to tune in for the broadcast on Fox. Fox declined to comment on the specific price tag for 30 seconds. Last year, a 30-second spot went for around $7 million. Now, thanks to somebody on Twitter, Danny Deraney, who's an Emmy winner. I don't know should I know him? It doesn't really matter. But here is, now this is in his tweet. He says, Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan reunite at Katz Deli for a Hellman's Super Bowl commercial. And this is all based on Harry Met Sally. By the way, Meg Ryan looks terrible. I always liked her and everything else. Now I know why she wasn't in the Top Gun sequel. Now, Danny says, this is awesome. Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan reunited Katz Deli for a Hellman's Super Bowl commercial. I think this is pathetic. But here we go. Judge for yourself.
I can't believe they let us back in this place.
Why?
Hello?
Nobody remembers that.
Something wrong?
It's not doing it.
No good?
Nothing.
Well, we can't have that.
Yeah.
What's happening? Here we go.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, boy.
So good.
Look at your face.
It's just. Woo.
Oh,
Oh.
this one's real.
Yes.
Lunch and a show, huh? How about that?
That is a sandwich. I'll have what she's having.
I'm competing with a condiment.
That is pathetic. That is pathetic. Now, look, if Meg Ryan has some sort of medical issue going on and she needs steroids or whatever, because I know that can happen to men and women, stuff like that. If that's the case, I apologize. Otherwise, sweetheart, way too much plastic surgery that you've had, and I don't understand why, because she used to be so pretty, and really liked her as an actress in so many, great movies. What in the hell is that? There's probably some Generation Zers out there who are like, what is that even all about? I mean, that scene in Harry Met Sally is one of the classic scenes of all time. Of course, Rob Reiner's mom is the one that said, I'll have what she's having. I mean, brought the house down. It came out of nowhere. It was unexpected. It was never in the trailers for that movie way back in the day in the mid to late 80s. It was a great movie. And it wasn't a long movie either. It was like an hour and 40 minutes. Excellent movie, very well done. That is an embarrassment. That is an embarrassment. And I'm sure the only reason why they did is they got paid a shitload of money. But what a joke that is. $8 million. And then they're Hellman, so I don't know if they're part of the Frito-Lay. I forget all the whatever it is. I'm appalled. I'm offended by it. As an avid moviegoer and a movie quoter, I am offended by that whole thing. And I think they would have given it more justice had they had an older lady instead of some 21-year-old lackey over there saying, I'll have what she's having. That did nothing for me. Nothing. Yeah, it's an embarrassment. I don't know, Meg Ryan. I don't know, man. Too much plastic surgery, dear.
Yeah, I don't know there's so many stars that end up getting just like the overkill of plastic surgery. I mean, you look at Marie Osmond in her commercial where she does that, the one for joints or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's the same way. I mean, she can barely smile because she has so much plastic going on. That's the worst thing you can do for your body. But yeah, I can't say I don't like the commercial. I think you can't, certain things that worked in the past, just leave it alone. I don't like it myself.
No, I don't know. It's just, there's certain parts of movies and there's certain spots that you can make fun of and go do some different things. And I personally think most of the Super Bowl commercials have gone downhill dramatically the last 15 years. I really don't pay attention. I mean, people sit there with notepads and, chart everything. And there's maybe 2 out of, I don't know, 20 spots. I don't know, and then if you're lucky, you might see it again in the second half. I don't know. The halftime shows do nothing for me. Never have, never will. I don't give a shit. The only time is when I saw them live. And the only one that was moving to me was in 2001 when I was in New Orleans where the Patriots beat the Rams at halftime with U2 and Bono doing all that. A great tribute to everybody who passed away at 9/11, and they ran all the letters, all the names scrolled down throughout the whole stadium. It was an amazing thing to watch. But other than that, I don't care. I mean, Lady Gaga did a good job. I mean, during. That's halftime is because it's too long. It's ridiculous. It's almost a half hour long. And that's when I smoke my cigar. Me and my buddy smoke my cigar, reheat food, get more food, get seconds or thirds or fourths, whatever it is. The halftime shows do absolutely nothing for me. I don't know if it's more of a female. I don't know a lot of males that say, God, I can't wait to see that halftime show. I think it's all the sports too. All the bowl games and everything else, they all suck. They're all lip synced, and there's always some agenda behind it. It's useless to me because it's like engagement parties to me. Don't have them. Just eliminate it. Have 12-minute halves, 15-minute halves. I know that they get all the commercials and then just come back to the game.
Yeah, they're also supposed to have Post Malone doing I know Kendrick Lamar, no, it's not Kendrick Lamar, or is it? Whoever's doing the halftime show at the on the field, apparently Post Malone is doing a halftime show for YouTube, I guess simultaneously. So I don't know if he's going to be in somewhere out, maybe on Bourbon Street doing some sort of thing, but apparently they're both doing some sort of halftime show. One on CBS or whoever's doing the rights to broadcast, and the other one on YouTube.
Very, very interesting. All right, quick break here, Angel. When we come back, we're going to get into what Adam Silver said yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show. Wants to shorten NBA games. Now, the average time span, by the way, is 2 hours and 15 minutes, or 2 hours and 16 minutes, up only a minute. The average for the last 15 years has been 2 hours and 15 minutes. I don't think timing in the NBA and the NHL, as far as longevity for games, is a big deal. They're both about the same, about 2 hours and 15 minutes. The same, 2.5 hours tops in the NHL, maybe on the whole, unless there's overtime or shootout. But he wants to shorten the time from 12 minutes down to 10 per quarter. Thinks that might save and help with load management. I don't know. I'm going to find the quote, let you hear from it, and we'll react to it as well. This Jimmy Butler thing is absolutely out of control. The LeBron stuff with Bronny is absolutely out of control as well. Him coming in, and your boy Maxey just lit him up the other day. I didn't get a chance to talk about it yesterday. I don't know if you were able to. I mean, Bronny comes in, he gets called up from the G League. He just sucks, just stunk up the joint. Like Maxey was all over him. A few turnovers right out of the gate, 0 for 5 shooting, stinks. And Stephen A. Smith, I thought, had a pretty, and either Stephen A. is really always preaching at you like this, or I'm just so tired of LeBron James. And this is one of those Stephen A. magic moments, I'm pleading. I love LeBron. He always has to do the preamble. I love LeBron James. Blah, blah, blah. We'll get into all of it. We'll hear it from Adam Silver, and we'll hear from LeBron James, some other NFL stuff as well, too. Some good conversation between Bill Belichick on the radio yesterday and Andy Reid, some good stuff. And again, loaded with guests today. Trevor Harris from WQAM at 8:05 this morning. The hurricane schedule is out. We'll talk about that with him and a lot of other stuff, the Jimmy Butler stuff. Billy Sparrows from the Boston Herald and bookies.com at 8:30. Mick Colagio, my NHL insider at 9:05 a.m. And the Big O, Glenn Ordway, Massachusetts Broadcaster Hall of Famer, will join me as well at 9:30 today. By the way, congratulations is in order to my other colleague up at WEEI and still does work at Nesson, Dale Arnold, who is also going to be inducted this year in June into the Massachusetts Broadcasters Hall of Fame. All right, all of that part of the Pete Sheppard Show here on a Thursday on the Coastal Sports Network.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
Hey, everybody, it's Pete Sheppard from the Coastal Sports Network. Want to tell you about my good friend Lou DiMuzio and his company. Lou is the president and founder of Ace Technology Advisors. They're big-time tech specialists. At ATA, they're able to craft, implement, and manage the best and most appropriate solution for your business. They leverage their industry-leading experience and their portfolio of technology partners to improve your best practices and infrastructure. So you can get a hold of them at 888-599-4223. That's 888-599-4223. Check them out on their webpage, www.acetechadvisors.com. That's www.acetechadvisors.com. Or you can email them sales@acetechadvisors.com. Check out my friend Lou DiMuzio and Ace Technology Advisors.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad, just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
All right, class. Let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all of these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Awesome. Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Don't spaz out because your team lost. Let Pete do it for you. Now, back to the Pete Sheppard Show.
Players win games. You can't win games without good players. I don't care who the coach is. It's impossible. You can't win without good players. You know, I found out when I had Taylor, Banks, Harry Carson, Pepper Johnson, Jim Bird, Everson Walls, all those guys of the Giants. Same thing, you know, when we got good at Cleveland and then at New England. It's Brady, it's McGinnis, it's Vrabel, it's Brewski, it's Corey Dillon, it's Randy Moss, Troy Brown, Lawyer Malloy, Ty Law, Rodney Harrison.
Stop, I can't take it. Oh, those were the days. Anyway, Bill Belichick yesterday went on Sirius XM NFL radio. Or actually, I think it was on McAfee show yesterday. Is that where this came from? Let me see. Maybe I'm going to give the right credit to the right source. God bless it. No, the Let's Go podcast. So here's more from Bill, and he wants to rename the Lombardi Trophy the Brady Trophy.
On the games, man, I didn't make any tackles. I didn't make any kicks. That was Vinatieri that made that kick in 4 inches of snow. You got to have good players. And as a coach, you want to give your players a chance to win. You want to put them in a position where if they go out there and play well, they'll have a chance to win. That's what Coach Parcells taught me is there's always a way to win. You just got to figure out what it is, and you have to give the players a chance.
They don't name it the Star Trophy. It's named the Lombardi Trophy.
Maybe they should name it the Brady Trophy. He won 7 of them.
Yeah. Anyway, Bill Belichick there. Before I get into the NBA, as long as we're sticking with that, I do want to play also another interesting conversation yesterday, Angel Martinez, with Andy Reid, former coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, now on the precipice, possibly, hopefully not, of winning his third, the Chiefs winning their third straight game. But Andy Reid on Joe Tooney, who came from the Patriots, by the way. So here's Andy Reid yesterday on Sirius XM NFL Radio talking with Bill Belichick about it.
Bill let me have Joe Tooney, so I appreciated that. But that kid, we have him out at left tackle now. I mean, Bill, you had him as an all-pro center, an all-pro guard, and now he's out there at left tackle, and he doesn't say a word about it. He doesn't complain, and that's a whole different world out there.
Oh my gosh!
There's no security blanket when you're on that side. There, on your outside, boy, that's a tough spot. But he just steps in and goes and never blinks on it.
Yeah, I told him, when we had him, I said, Joe, we're moving you to guard, and you're never going to play tackle again for us unless it's a dire emergency or we have nobody else. But you know what? That's just the kind of guy he is. He's just going to line up and play, and you're going to get his best on every snap. And you know what? It's good enough.
Yeah, it is. He's done very, very well. A lot of the offensive linemen back in the day when the Patriots drafted him or picked up his free agent, whatever, many times they had to be versatile. That was another thing about the Patriots. It had to be versatile, very much like your Eagles this year, Angel. Especially, I mean, I was, what's his name, Jernigan, the center that only suited up. He played in the second half. I didn't think he was going to play at all, but that is a tribute to your offensive line coach, whose name escapes me right now. But the fact that Jalen Hurts only had a couple of centers in his career that he's worked with, Jason Kelsey and Jernigan, and then the versatility of guys being able to move from guard to center. It's big. The Patriots always had a few of those guys that did that. And, that's why your Eagles are the best team top to bottom. They may not have the best quarterback statistically per se, but that is why, because your team is the best team, I believe top to bottom is the reason why the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl this year. I really believe that. I really believe that. I've been saying it for a while now. I mean, after Detroit, obviously I picked Detroit and Baltimore that didn't get it done. But I've also been saying for quite some time that the Eagles top to bottom had the best roster in the NFL. You could just see it. The coach is staying out of the way, and they remained reasonably healthy. They remained reasonably healthy for most of the year and going into this postseason, so that's good. And I want to get a couple of videos in before the top of the hour here, and we're not going to break again at the top of the hour. We'll just go right into Trevor Harris over at WQAM, who's probably getting up right now, brushing his teeth. Substituting orange juice for milk and his Cheerios or Rice Krispies because it's blurry, and then we'll join us at 8:05 find out the buzz that's going on over on the east coast of Florida with the Jimmy Butler situation. And I think I'm just so sick and tired of it. All right, Angel, if we could, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but yesterday, right under the show, Dan Patrick had Adam Silver on as a guest yesterday, and Adam floating the idea he wants to change, the commissioner wants to change the length of quarters from 12 down to 10 minutes. And here's how it sounded yesterday.
Give me the wildest thing that you guys have considered. I'm sure there's always, we're going to try this. The NFL doing the kickoff the way they did. It's pretty crazy that that's what it looks like. Give me this has been discussed.
I mean, one that's only been discussed a little, I wouldn't put it necessarily in the category of being so wild, is potentially 2 free throws for a foul and a 3-point shot. I don't necessarily think I would do it in the last 2 minutes of the game, but I think that's something interesting. Something else that I'm a fan of, and I'm probably in a minority, as we get more involved in global basketball, the NBA is the only league that plays 48 minutes. And I am a fan of 4 10-minute quarters. I'm not sure that many others are. I mean, putting aside what it means for records and things like that, I think that a 2-hour format for a game is more consistent with sort of modern television habits. I don't think people in arenas aren't asking us to shorten the game, but I think as a television program, being 2 hours, that's Olympic basketball is 2 hours. College basketball, of course, is
but if you like it. I'd say it has kind of a little bit of a push there.
Yeah, but it's such a dramatic change to the game. I mean, I think something like that would have to be talked more about over time. I mean, incidentally,
but the pitch clock was dramatic, Commissioner.
Yeah, no, I get it, and I'm a fan of what baseball did. I'm a baseball fan, and I think some of those changes have really increased sort of the engagement, the entertainment value of the game, and so I'm paying a lot of attention to that. And in fact, I've used the pitch clock, the sort of the increasing the size of the base, et cetera, in meetings at the NBA to say, if baseball, which is more locked into tradition, and I don't mean that negatively, than any other sport. And part of what baseball provides is the tradition, the legacy, that if they're able to make those changes, certainly we shouldn't be afraid to look at changes as well. So, I also think, though, we have made a series of changes over the years. They haven't been as dramatic in many cases. We've changed the format in the last 2 minutes of the game so we wouldn't have as many stoppages. We have a coach's challenge now. We had the hack-a-shack issue. We changed the rule there. I mean, we added the cup, which we now have. We have a play-in tournament. I mean, so we've made significant changes over the years.
I have an idea before I let you go. How about we take away the three-point line during the in-season tournament?
Why?
Interesting. I mean, it's like the issue there is...
Wait, that wasn't interesting.
Well, because I'm not... I like the three-point shot. I mean, let me take a step back. I mean, if you think from when you first started covering the NBA to the skill level of big men now, I mean, look at Victor Wembanyama, look at Giannis, look at Jokic, look what these guys can do. It was like the fact that they are so skillful that they can shoot from these kinds of distances, shoot in the way.
But basically, the part of the part that I wanted to stress was the shortening of the game. And he brings up, so it's all about television now and not over. And look, first of all, you're going to lose revenue because that 2 minutes, that extra 8 minutes is going to be more commercials that you're going to lose. It's not about the players or about, it's about TV. It's not that big a deal for the NBA game on average, as I said. The average NBA game right now this season is, over the past 15 years, is 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's what it is. This year, it's 2 hours and 16 minutes. On average, the last 15 has been 2 hours and 15 minutes. I don't think that's a big deal for people. I think people wish baseball games were that quick. I know I do. Now that I do. I didn't back in the day when you're at the ball game. I wanted to go 25 innings every time. And you're there and a kid. I wanted to stay at the ballpark as long as possible. But I would love a 2 hour and 15 minute game. It happens from time to time now. But the pitch clock has nothing to do with this. I mean, it's apples and oranges. One has nothing to do with the other. So to me, it's just I think it looks bad. It's another commissioner, just another way for NBA players to not play 48 minutes. They're going to play 10-minute quarters now, just like the girls do in the WNBA. By the way, I'm not crapping on the WNBA, but and I know it may be sort of a slow time. When you feel when ESPN leads with SportsCenter, when I was sick yesterday, and you're leading, first 15 minutes with the big WNBA trade that about 4.2% of the country cares about, and you go, it's funny, it's fine to mention it, but it's like on a whole, it's nobody gives a shit. It's just the truth. Nobody is sitting at the water cooler going, God. And I was listening. I had to jump out and run to the store to get something yesterday, and I had the national radio show on ESPN National Radio, and you hear people. Greeny wasn't on yesterday at the time, but you hear people filling. I don't know. It's like he goes, "Yeah, I was talking to my buddy Joe yesterday about the big trade. Yeah, and I do think the Las Vegas Aces are going to be better." The fuck out of here! You people haven't watched any of those games. Are you serious? No one sits around going, yeah, unless it's Caitlin Clark playing against what's her name, the big few. I forget her name. The other another WNBA star. Unless they're going head to head, huh?
Angel Reese.
Yes, Angel Reese. Two great players. I take nothing away from the athletes or anything else. I'm dealing with reality here in this business. Nobody is sitting around the water cooler yesterday going, God, look at that deal the Brittany Greer. Look at that deal the Las Vegas Aces did. Nobody. These people on the national radio, they have to fake it because they carry WNBA games. They have to fake it. I was talking to my buddy Angel. I was talking to you. Yeah. Do you imagine if I sat here and did a show on the WNBA for more than like 2 seconds? Click, 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 clickety, click, click, click. Now, you have specific podcasts and specific shows that dedicate that time. People know what they're getting into, and I love that. That's great. But this stuff about they try to force shit down your throat all the time. No one at the water cooler in the office is sitting there talking about the big WNBA trade yesterday. I'm telling you. Oh, it's a very, 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 very itty-bitty, teeny-weeny, minuscule percentage. Nobody. This will get more play on the NBA trying to go WNBA by shrinking it from 12 to 10 minutes. That'll get more play. But I can't stand, Angel, when the national media tries to force issues down your throat that they think people are actually talking about. And I do feel badly for some of the broadcasters on radio and TV because they are forced to talk about it. They're forced to talk about it. Otherwise, they get reprimanded by management because they're not being diversified enough. It's so stupid. And yet then they say they don't care about ratings, and they do care about ratings. You talk about the WNBA for more than 5 minutes, click, 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 clickety, click. You hear it all over the country. Nobody cares. Nobody cares unless it's Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark going at it on the whole. Yeah, I'm being realistic. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm not taking anything away. I mean, the WNBA doesn't exist without the NBA. They can cackle all they want about this, that, and the other thing. It still loses a shitload of money. Doesn't matter. It's hard enough watching the NBA for a lot of people. I'm lucky, because my team is a world champion. But it's hard enough for a lot of people in this day and age to watch the NBA, let alone the WNBA. And to think that that's water cooler talk is just stupid. It's ridiculous. You're living in a non-realistic world. Not happening. You have shows and podcasts that are dedicated to WNBA. No problem with that. You know what you're getting into. You understand? If I sat here and said, hey, today we're going to do a whole show on the WNBA for 2 hours, you know what you're getting into. No one will be left listening, but I know what we'd be getting into. It's bad enough to sit and try to talk 2 or 3 hours about the NBA, let alone the WNBA. There's a major story going on that, really, okay, a little blurb for a few minutes. That's fine. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, and that rivalry, that's kind of catchy. I'd be lying if I said I didn't tune their games on from time to time. Do I watch the whole thing? No. That's just me. I'm not saying if you do, God bless you. All the better to you. I'm saying these are not, the WNBA, that's not a water cooler topic. And by that, if you don't, when you're in the office and people bring that up, there's a gazillion other things going on in sports, and that is at the bottom of the list. Sorry, it just is. Anyway, Angel.
As far as the Adam Silver, when he talked about the cutting down the time.
Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to the contracts, are you renegotiating the contracts as well? Since now they're not playing their full 12-minute quarters. And I know it seems silly, but at the same time too, he's saying I'm looking at it as far as the TV time. No, because now everybody's attention span is this span of a flea. Like people watch stuff like if you don't take something important and 0.001 of a second, scroll past. It's just you're making everyone just less attentive. And
to your point about the minutes and everything else, see, people are going to think, well, if this is the case, then there won't be as much load management stuff and players that don't like to play back-to-back games or if they're whatever, that extra time that they don't play. I mean, I think it's so ridiculous. Do you know how long TV timeouts take on average, and especially if the games are on ESPN and TNT? We'll be back after this 30-second timeout. No, you won't. It's like a 2.5-minute timeout.
Yeah.
It's not a 30-second timeout. The NFL's the same way. Time it on your watch when they go to once in a great while. The networks will get it right, and they'll say, well, back in 30 seconds. And they'll show the split screen, and you're actually back in 30 seconds. But by the time play starts again, it's really more like a minute. But most of the time when they say we're back in 30 seconds, put your stopwatch on sometime. Go on your phone. Hit the clock. It's like 2 minutes, sometimes 3. So stop with it. I mean, the load management stuff is just so ridiculous. We got a bunch of voices in this generation. Teams with their stars that were in last place should play all 82 games up until the point. Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic, all those guys would always play if they weren't really, really hurt. They'd play all 82 games, even to the end. And if it didn't matter, they'd still be playing.
To me, the only time, truthfully, the NBA games, the longest it actually takes, the final 2 minutes of the game. Everybody knows this. Fouls, this, unless you're being boat raced, usually it's like the final 2 minutes of the game. This foul, that foul. We're going back and forth, timeout, TV timeout. But to condense it down to 10 minutes because you want it to be a round, even number at 2 hours on TV, okay.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense. And again, you're cutting only off 15. The average game this year is 2 hours and 16 minutes. The last 15 years, 2 hours and 15 minutes. That's fine. I don't think fans are upset about that. No. I think they wish baseball. Before we get into Angela, I want to punch up the Stephen A. thing. It's about Bronny from yesterday. Get your tissue ready. Again, I'm not going to play the whole thing, just a little bit of it. But how about this, Angel? 7 years ago today, Adam Schefter just tweeted this out. 7 years ago today, the Chiefs agreed to trade quarterback Alex Smith to the Redskins in exchange for a third-round pick and cornerback Kendall Fuller. The trade cleared the way for Kansas City to turn over its starting quarterback job to Patrick Mahomes, who has started the AFC Championship game every year since. It's amazing. It's amazing. Something that's not amazing, and it was great to see. Somebody just tweeted, and Steve said how about floating the idea of eliminating the three? No, I don't want the three eliminated. I don't want it eliminated. And if you're going to, I don't know if dialing it back is going to do any good anyway. They've already moved it back. It's just, look, my team shoots the three reasonably well. One of the best in the league. And the problem I have with again, when people view the Celtics, on the highlights, it doesn't matter. Last night they blew out the Bulls. It was great. They only show the threes. I mean, they still take a lot more twos than threes, but they never, ever. And that goes for most, unless it's a stupid dunk. And, dunks don't impress me anymore. Very few of them do.
Right.
But the Celtics actually take a lot of 2-point shots. They never show them on when they're doing highlights. Never. It's just, they have to hit three. But anyway. All right. Here is, in case you missed it yesterday, this is Stephen A. LeBron James, because Bronny got called up from the G League, and this one, J.J. Redick, and sorry what happened to his home and everything and all that stuff, but as a coach, I mean, please. And he inserts him into the game way too early in the first quarter, and Bronny James made an ass out of himself. He's not that good. I'm not saying he can't develop. He's not ready. He's nowhere near ready to be in the NBA, not even remotely close. So here's Stephen A. Smith yesterday talking about that very situation.
I'm really, really trying to be as respectful as I possibly can be towards LeBron James.
I won't be, but
one of the top 2 or 3 players in the history of basketball, number 2 in my eyes. Mm-hmm. A treasure to the game of basketball that we should and will all miss when he is gone. I am pleading with LeBron James as a father.
Oh my God.
Stop this. Stop this. We all know that Bronny James is in the NBA because of his dad. The first game of the season, opening night, the Griffeys in attendance, father-son duo playing in an NBA game for the first time, an absolutely positively wonderful story. And then reality sets in. We love what we're seeing from him in the G League.
We do?
Because that's where you belong.
Yeah.
As you hone your skills and you get better and you legitimately earn, which I believe he has the potential to do. I am rooting for Bronny James.
I agree with that. Potential to do.
It would be cruel to root against him. It's a wonderful kid. I wish him nothing but the best. But he's LeBron James' son. And everybody knows what attention that brings. Molly, Doggy, put them up on the screen because I want to see their face when I say this.
Here we go.
Right now, Bronny James is averaging 0.3 points, 0.3 assists, and 0.4 rebounds. You know what people are saying. You know what? In 13 games, he has played 44 minutes. He has scored 4 points. He is shooting 1 of 16 from the field, 0 for 7 from three-point range. How are you doing him favors? We know that he's not ready yet. And I'm saying this with compassion. I'm asking the greatest player in the game, one of the top 2 players in the history of basketball, an ambassador for this game, the face of the league, a 4-time champion, a guy that's gone to 10 NBA finals, one of the greatest we have ever or will ever see, who is a basketball savant. You know, better than me, better than Doggy, better than J.J. Redick, better than Rob Pelinka, better than any basketball analysis or analyst that exists. You know what these numbers mean. You know what it's going to do to your son, to people who are missing out on opportunities, that are busting their tail on other NBA teams in the G
All right, that's
League,
good.
in Europe, and everywhere else.
That's good
What
enough.
kind
It sounds like Sam Darnold situation to me. Again, not saying that LeBron, and I said this when the Lakers were forced to draft him. You know, it was LeBron's influence that they were forced to draft him. But all I said was, this kid's going to have the potential, and what's happened to him in the NBA is exactly what I thought was going to happen. The Lakers clinging to the 5 spot, but that's going to change because J.J. Redick is a jackass of a coach. All right, joining us now for his weekly visit down Alligator Alley, from my house anyway, Trevor Harris from WQAM. Yay! The change schedule came out the other day, the full schedule.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. A little bit. But I'm sure where you are, at least the past few days, and probably the past 2 weeks, unfortunately, you're still being Jimmy Butler continues to fuck up and continues to make fodder for sports talk show pundits like your station over there in Miami. I'm sure that's getting the majority of the play over the Florida Panthers and probably over the Miami Dolphins and whatever. And, the Heat are hanging in there. They'd be the 7th seed right now. They're 23-23. They got blown out last night. But it's very interesting. Trevor Harris from QAM joining us. And so you guys all forced to talk about this shit all day long. What's Jimmy going to do? Where's he going to go? What's he going to be? So sick of it. It's why people hate the NBA.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. When you have your buddies who work at the San Francisco station and for 95.7 The Game, they ask you, like, what's going on with Jimmy? Is like, honestly, if you guys want him, you could have him, honestly.
Jimmy's down.
They're all down for it. It's like, please take him. Like, I know we'll get Kuminga in return, but like, cool. I'm like, I like when I say this all the time. When my dad's in town right now, when he flew in yesterday for the Kings game, he said this. He said this. So just Jimmy Butler thing, is this going to end? It's like, honestly, who knows? Honestly, let's get it back to the Canes. I said to him, he starts laughing anyways.
And Cleveland last night blew them out 126 to 106 in that one. But it's just. And I'm just wondering, what Pat Riley, off the record, if he could be a fly on the wall at his house, he must want to take him and just.
Like Homer Simpson does to Bart Simpson. That's what I see Pat Riley wanting to do to him so badly. Like, why you little? I just want to see it happen. I would like that scene to happen, and then we have some more stuff to talk about. How Pat Riley just hates his players now, because that would be the coolest thing ever to talk about down here right now. So,
well, I mean, they're hanging around with this distraction. They're hanging around and hanging around. I mean, whatever. He's gonna be. He's probably gonna be at this point. I guess anything is better than Jimmy Butler. The guy's not going to play, and that was so unprofessional what he did. Walking out. You're coming off the bench. I'm going to walk out this shoot around. You're making $50 million a year. You fucking douchebag. I mean, just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff, and again, you're going to hear the disrespect stuff. Nobody gives a crap that you're being disrespected at $50 million a year. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Thank God the Celtics have a good team, a great team, and I can watch them on a nightly basis. Otherwise, I'm telling you, I would not watch this league. I really wouldn't. Until the playoffs, I really wouldn't. It's very, very difficult to watch with some of these guys. And then, now Wemby's getting into the mix last night. Victor Wembanyama. Refs' lack of calls feels unfair. Buddy, are you serious? First of all, go ask Shaquille O'Neal, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Robert Parrish, Moses Malone. Go ask those guys what it's like. Please, unfair? Because you get bumped, because you get bumped. I feel like, Sonny Corleone talking to Michael after. It's like, now you want to go, you want to kill a police captain because he slapped you in the face a little bit. No, that was not a slap in the face a little bit.
This is not like Paul Pierce getting treated like a rookie versus Suns in 2002 or 2003.
No, big man. No one's going to have any Hakeem Olajuwon. No one's going to have any sympathy for you, Victor Wembanyama, because you get knocked to the ground a little bit. You better get used to it. I go by flatten Kurt Rambis in the 84 finals. Go watch that. Best clothesline in the history of any sport, wrestling included.
Yes, John Bradford Layfield also agrees on that one, by the way.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Bradshaw Layfield, the clothesline from hell. How about that?
That's right.
I will say this. At least we see something out of him. Because I'm glad he's.
Oh, I like him. I like Wembanyama.
I do too. For me, for me with the league, I can't watch the Miami Heat because they've just you've pounded me in the skull, like this team. And I'm like, nah. I'd rather watch the Houston Rockets play. I like Ime Udoka and how he's coaching those kids up in Houston, acting like a team and stuff. I like team basketball anyway. So, and I like the Celtics. They play good team basketball.
They play team basketball. Like I said, the only problem is with the Celtics is that on national TV, whether they win or lose, on ESPN, and all they do is show them shooting threes for highlights. I mean, they have a lot of great 2-point shots, more than threes. They actually take more 2-pointers than threes on most nights, but it's just, again, last night they win by 20 at home. Yeah. They don't usually cover when they're big double-digit favorites, particularly at home, but they did last night over the Bulls.
The Monday game
they didn't have Hauser, they didn't have Horford, but they had everybody else full arsenal. And Porzingis came out on fire as he has in the first quarter again, and they blew, as they should have, blown the doors off of the Bulls.
The Monday game was fun, anyways, versus the Rockets. That was an entertaining game, anyways.
Great game, it was a great game.
That's what I call it. That was great league pass basketball. If you have the pass, which I decided to buy finally, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna watch this anyways, and I enjoyed watchable basketball for the first time in my lifetime.
Yeah, just the fourth time this year the Celtics have blown a 10-point plus fourth quarter lead in that game, but it is what it is. Come playoff time, it's going to be. If they're not they'll be first or second, and it's not going to be. It'll be. They'll have their full arsenal more than likely. Hopefully, more than likely. They got the break coming up a little bit in the All-Star game, and which nobody watches.
I've always with the All-Star break. I always planned a hockey trip around that weekend.
Now you can't this week because of the 4-team format that's going out there that nobody gives a shit about. And I've talked to my buddy Mick Colagio about this, and I'll do it again. It's going to be one of the cities, original 6 city in Boston.
And Montreal.
Because the Bruins aren't doing that well or they're hanging on, I don't think it's going to draw a big crowd. The Beanpot will draw way bigger crowds coming up.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Beanpot will always draw the bigger crowd. This Four Nations face-off thing is I don't think if you had Russia in this versus USA, Russia, Canada, and you throw in another, you have a lot of the big stars not playing this because you don't have Russia in it. So it's forget it anyway. So it sucks.
No, and you had, the other night you had, the Bruins with a pathetic, pitiful performance.
That was brutal. That was
against the Buffalo Sabres. And I just want to make sure I'm right about this because
they lost 7-2.
They lost 7-2, but they left in that game. They left. Swayman played the whole game.
Oh, God.
6 goals on 32 shots. There were, an empty netter at the end, or maybe 2 empty. Well, no, only one. Gave up 6 goals on 32. I mean, they left him in. And this is the second time. I think they did it earlier in the season under Cassidy. And now Joe Sacco is here. And I wonder if something has to do because he bailed out of training camp, didn't want to go. And that kind of stuff. So now they're sort of sticking it to him. But it is, in the NHL, and you had the Panthers lose last. They lost last night, too.
I was actually at the game last night. My father is in town. He's a big, my dad's from Los Angeles, big LA Kings fan. So me and my father, we always like to do one game a year, or we try to.
That's nice.
we went to the LA Kings game, and we do club level. We had my cousin lives down there. She came down with her husband, and we enjoyed it. We rooted for the Kings, and they lost 3-0. So, which is never
Florida lost to a bad Chicago Blackhawk team the other night, so they came back.
Vegas.
Vegas.
They lost to Vegas Sunday night, which I was producing that game.
Yeah, but they lost to the Blackhawks too, right? Not too long
No,
ago.
they lost to LA.
Oh, it's Tampa. I'm sorry, Tampa lost to the Blackhawks.
Tampa lost to the Blackhawks. Yes.
So the Panthers right now in the conference, they're fourth in the conference right now, with and they're 10 points behind Washington. But so that was good. So good.
They're in the Atlantic. I'll say that they're first place in the Atlantic, which is good. I like to say if they could play the Boston first round, I could be able to sell my tickets at least, and I can give some of my tickets to Pete Sheppard. Anyways,
I do not. No, I am not. I don't want to see. First round, I'm just hoping my team makes the playoffs. Right now, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, right now they'd be the 7th seed. I mean, they're hanging in there. They're so frustrating to watch because they win games like 3. And every time you think they took 2 steps forward, it's a 3 step back, and opposites attract, as Paul Abdul once said. Anywho,
great song too, by the way.
Yeah, not bad. I played it back in my day when I was DJing.
There we go. It's always that. Those are total bangers. Like those bangers need to come back anyway. So that's why bring them back.
All right, so has the Canes schedule been a topic of discussion at all? And we know they open up August 31st at home against Notre Dame. Then they have the Cream Puff schedule. Then they have the Cream Puff game at home. The first 4 games
are the state of Florida until
Bethune-Cookman. They got this 13th is USF.
Yeah.
And then they have the Gators on September 20th. First 4 games are at home. Their first road game is October 4th. They have a week in between after the Gator game, and then they go to Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, they're back home against St. Louis. So they Louisville. 5 of their first 6 games are at home. Actually, 6 of their first 7 games are at home because
Florida.
October 25th is in. That's right. They don't leave the state of Florida. They're home against Stanford, and then the tough one will be at November 1st at SMU, and then they're back home for the next 2. Syracuse on the 8th. And then NC State on the 15th. Then they close the season out at Vatech, and then on Thanksgiving weekend at Pittsburgh. So no Clemson again this year.
No, I go by this. They're putting they're showing the hell in the games like you got to win in cold weather this year. That's what I'm going by. Like I don't know what the weather will be in Dallas. It won't be terribly nipply, like to say, but the locals will say it will be nipply. But I will say that'll be a fun game the day after Halloween, which I may say that may be my road trip for the year. If the Eagles do play the Cowboys,
you go on a road trip every year, right? You go to see one of their away games every year.
I do an Eagle road game every year. I'm trying to figure out if it lines up the schedule. If the Eagles play the Cowboys that weekend, when the SMU will play the Miami Hurricanes. That's what I'm trying to line up right now.
Oh yeah, we know the opponents for all these teams in the NFL. We just don't know the days and times yet.
Yes, I need the days and times, and I can figure out if I can do it all. So I'm hoping for that in my little as I do my little crystal ball right now. I'm ready for that. I think the best game on the schedule. I'm always down for a rivalry. I know Notre Dame, Florida is Miami. Notre Dame is the best thing to happen. It'll be the marquee game on the Sunday at 7:30, which I'm excited to work anyways.
Yep.
Josie asking you work in that game, like Josie, I'm there for you week 1. Do not worry, anyways.
Absolutely.
So I'm more excited for the Florida games. I think that's a fun rivalry.
I'm excited about the Notre Dame game. And part of me wishes it was later on in the season, but nevertheless, the Gator game is going to be fantastic because they're the Lagway. They're bad. I mean, they really, really came on strong at the end of last year. I mean, when you talk about how many times we'd say, is Billy Napier going to get fired this week or that week? And then I went back and, hit myself in the head because before the season even started, I know you and I talked about this. I certainly talked about it with Angel and others. That was arguably the toughest schedule in the history of college football. Was the Gators schedule last year, And I said last year, if they go 7-5, that's a good season. Well, that's what they did, right? They went 7-5, they go 8-5. I forget. But but that's what happened. They went 7-5, and they really, they didn't get there kind of like the way I thought they would get there. But Lagway first definitely came in and definitely proved,
he was better than Graham.
The second half of the season, they were great. They were excellent, beating Mississippi, and they were very, very solid. It would have been great to see them play Miami at the end of the season.
Yeah, definitely. The other thing I'm looking forward to is they got Stanford coming to them, and it's the week before they play a Friday night game at Louisville
Yeah.
versus Louisville. So I think that'll be a fun game as well. Friday night games could go any way as well. So
Well, we know last year was one of the most exciting games.
yeah,
Last year was phenomenal, back and forth with Louisville. That was at their place, but that was great. A lot of the games came down. The Virginia Tech game, obviously,
yeah.
was huge.
It's like I always go by this. Miami, Virginia Tech needs to be on the schedule for life. I like that on the schedule. It's good.
Yeah.
I grew up watching that. That's old Big East Miami Hurricanes football. Miami, Virginia Tech, Miami, Pitt. I always say you got to keep the old Big East rivalries in there in the ACC for me, just to as a consumer, like, oh, we got the Big East rivalry. Why not? So that's what I go by. You got Syracuse, and I will say that Syracuse will be the revenge game, like when they played Washington in 2001. When they lost up in Miami traveled up to Washington in 2000. That's going to be the biggest revenge game of all time. They knocked them out of the playoffs. So
yeah, no, that's going to be absolutely going to be huge, and we'll see what Syracuse is made of this time. But that's a game I'm trying to block out of my head.
Yes.
That was the one Mario Cristobal game I thought he really screwed up by not going for the touchdown over the field goal on 4th and 9. And, of course, they got a shitty call called against them on a run up the middle that got down to the 2 and was called back on a phantom holding call that, anyway.
Ridiculous.
There were too many of those plays last year that they shot themselves in the foot. But we digress. We're all about the future.
Yes.
We're not living in the past anymore. We're not living in the past. So how are you doing as an Eagles fan? How are you doing as far as you gearing up? Do you want to go to New Orleans? Did you?
I looked at it. I go by this. I thought about it. I was like, I don't know anybody down there. Like if it was Phoenix, I know people out there. I could stay at my uncle's house. Only thing I have to do is find him a ticket for him to go with me. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
New Orleans, I got to find a flight. Like it's always like I have a flight. I got to find a hotel, and I look at it as like, let me go to I've never been to New Orleans. I don't want to go during a Super Week would be so much fun to go to. I also go by this. I kind of like my couch and my nice 4K television. It's 65 inch. Yeah. So it's like,
I've been there 3 times. I've been to Super Bowls and a Final Four.
Yeah.
And when Providence, Syracuse, UNLV in Indiana, the year, the Keith Smart year in 1987. That was a blast.
Yeah,
that was a blast. Especially they ran out of beer on the flight down. They ran out of booze on the flight down. All the Providence College, we flew out of Green to New Orleans direct. And then I remember my girlfriend at the time, and I was only 19, but I made my father come, Providence College alum. He thought he was going to interfere. I said, Dad, you're coming. You're not going to be in the way, blah, blah, blah. They weren't like,
Like that's how my dad was asking me. He's like, you thought about going to New Orleans? Like, Dad, I like my couch for Super Bowl Sunday. It's a tradition unlike no other. I have no bathroom lines. I can do whatever I want. I have takeout on the phone, and I can do whatever I want. If I run out of beer and alcohol, right across the street is a Wawa, anyways. So we're good to go. That is a true statement, by the way. There is a Wawa right near my place.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We were going to my good friends Dave and Marie's. We're having a big bash. As we always do, as we did last week, and my friend Jim and Kim's. I mean, food off the wall, just crazy stuff.
But I am getting the electric chair ready for myself because that's what I go by. It's the electric chair because that's every Super Bowl I've seen. It's been Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes for the Eagles. So it's like I got to put myself in the electric chair again. So,
but getting back to my New Orleans story, so we stayed. I think we stayed at the Marriott that was connected to the Dome. I can't remember where we stayed. It was a nice place. We got it early. Actually, not early. As soon as that's another story that takes too long to tell. I'll tell it some other time. When I was an assistant head page, this would be a year before I got into radio. I was an assistant head page at the State House. So my job every day for work was to stand next to the Speaker of the House, and and look, I had to memorize all the House of Representatives in Rhode Island, and you had to know exactly where everybody sat. And basically, it was telling other subordinate pages to go get Representative, Rossi this, go get him that. It was usually or something like that. A little light would come on in the front. Speaker would look at me and go, yep, okay. And that was my job.
That is crazy.
When we were trying to get the flights and the tickets and everything else and the packages to New Orleans after Providence had been Georgetown and was going to the Final Four. And it was very, very difficult. I was on the phone immediately on that Saturday. Couldn't get through to anybody on that Sunday. And then on Monday, And thank God my uncle, my great Uncle John, who had passed, who's now not with us, but passed, is he had a lot of influence at the state house. And he knew this guy. I'll never forget it. His name was Guy Delmonico. Great guy out of Johnston, Rhode Island. And I'm sitting there. This is a true story. I'm sitting there on Monday afternoon. Now, the game is the Final Four is coming up that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and or the week after that. I forget when. But he knew Providence wasn't going to get a lot of seats at Syracuse, UNLV, and Indiana.
Yeah.
So the packages I knew were going to be tough, and I couldn't find anybody. My dad was on the phone. So my uncle's like, I'm gonna see what I can do. So I am standing there. The speaker is doing this, that, you know, Bill, blah, 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 gavel, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, hushes the mic. He goes,
yeah.
Peter, yeah, yes, Mr. Speaker, yes. He goes, go see your uncle over there. I said, okay. I said, something wrong? He goes, no. He said, go ahead. He said, Patty, come up here. Pete, go down there. So it's like, so Patty comes up, takes my son. So I go see my uncle. He's like, we're going. I said, where are we going? He said, we're going to Johnston. He said, so we walked into this travel agency place where a guy is running it. A small office, but very well respected, very well. And as soon as I got there, so we had already, he got us the package, hotel, flight, everything.
Ooh.
It was only $650, which is not bad for 4 days and 3 nights in New Orleans. It was fantastic. And then, as soon as we're there and we started to get the packages, somebody from the State House, Rhode Island State House, comes in with a bunch of not sticky notes, but what do you call it? Cards,
index
cards. Hands it to Guy. Is like, you have to call all these people before you give any of these packages away. Now, mind you, we've already signed up for R3. So the guy left. He rips up all of them, and he goes, fuck them. He goes, I'm giving these packages to the kids. He goes, they call first. He goes, this is not going to be for the politicians to go grease their pockets. I said, that is great. So that's how I ended up getting down there. But I remember my bigger story is we ran out of booze on the plane, whatever. With my dad and my girlfriend at the time, we walk into... by the time we got all settled in, because the flight was later and it was direct. By the time we got all settled in, it's like 11 o'clock. Well, let's go out for a drink. And we went to the local pub. I can't even remember what it was. And I went, what time do you close? He goes, we can't close until the last person leaves. And I went, what? He's like, yeah, we can't close until the last person leaves. I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
That's a party.
And I was 19 and it was legal age then. So anyway.
Holy Christ.
Anyway, yeah.
19
years old. Yep, absolutely.
What a time.
Man. All right, what's going on with you, Trav, before I let you go?
Dad's in town. We're going to dinner tonight. We're going to Houston's in Boca, as we like to do.
Oh, I've been there.
Yes.
Houston's is a chain, but an elegant chain.
Yes. So this is the Goat Harris family restaurants. We would go to the one in Manhattan Beach all the time.
Awesome.
I found out that one closed. So I've been trying to look for new Houston's and stuff. Me and my dad always talk about we miss Houston's. Like I told Dad, there's one in Boca. I was like,
there used to be one in Boston, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't remember one in Boston. I know there's one in New Jersey. My dad like, we're not going to. We never go to the one in New Jersey.
I've been to the one you're talking about. I've been to that one in Boca with my family too back in the day, and a lot of other family friends. And that was when I was younger, much younger. I was probably 10 or 11, 12, and I was like, when the hell are we getting out of here?
Yeah, so we're going to that tonight. Then we're seeing my cousin. We're seeing her do. She does horse riding competitions and stuff with her husband.
Oh, really?
So we're going up to Wellington tomorrow anyway to go kart racing.
Oh, sweet. I missed that. I absolutely missed that. All right, buddy. Great stuff as always. You producing anything coming up?
Miami Hurricanes basketball Saturday night against Notre Dame.
I produced that thing last night. I mean, I'm telling you, bet Virginia. I mean, just bet against the Canes every single game. Take the other team on the money line.
That's what we're doing anyways. So,
all right, buddy.
Take care, guys.
We'll talk to you soon. Best to you and your dad. Have a blast.
We'll do, always.
All righty. There it is. Trevor Harris off of the cloud of dust. Anyway, Angel, if we could, let's just take a, before we go in, let me just read what I got to read here. Actually, we may not take a quick, actually, we're going to take, let's take a quick break here, Angel, just the local stuff, and we'll come right back in like 90 seconds. So this is like a reel. This is not like a timeout we were just talking about where it takes 3 or 4 minutes. This is real. We'll come right back here with the Pete Sheppard Show on the Coastal Sports Network and Bill Sparrows.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Rostown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
Hey, everybody, it's Pete Sheppard from the Coastal Sports Network. Want to tell you about my good friend Lou DiMuzio and his company. Lou is the president and founder of Ace Technology Advisors. They're big-time tech specialists. At ATA, they're able to craft, implement, and manage the best and most appropriate solution for your business. They leverage their industry-leading experience and their portfolio of technology partners to improve your best practices and infrastructure. So you can get a hold of them at 888-599-4223. That's 888-599-4223. Check them out on their webpage, www.acetechadvisors.com. That's www.acetechadvisors.com. Or you can email them sales@acetechadvisors.com. Check out my friend Lou DiMuzio and Ace Technology Advisors. Hey, everybody, I want to tell you about Phil Castanetti's Sports World in Saugus, Massachusetts. It's New England's place to buy or sell the finest in sports memorabilia. For over 35 years, Sports World has offered the finest in sports collectibles. Get on down there at Sports World, 184 Broadway in Saugus. Call 781-233-7222 for more information. 781-233-7222 for more information. Sports World in Saugus, be there. Also, want to tell you about for the best articles and audio. Only one source that provides everything you need 365 days a year to satisfy your sports crave. It's Total Sports Prep. The staff combs through the best articles and audio so you don't have to. Sports and non-sports kicker stories will leave you laughing all day long. And the sports and to get your free trial of Total Sports Prep, check them out contact them, info@sportsbroadcastingcoach.com, info@sportsbroadcastingcoach.com. Total Sports Prep, the name says it all. It's like Bill Sparrows, the name says it all right there. You think you mentioned Bill Sparrows, and then there he is, just like that. Poof, out of nowhere. The great writer, columnist from the Boston Herald, and senior betting analyst at bookies.com. We say good morning to Bill, and thanks for joining me after my little sick spell yesterday. But thanks, Bill. How you doing? Good morning.
I'm doing all right, Pete. Thanks for having me as always.
It's finally warm again.
Yes, it is. Even though I'm still wearing a sweatshirt.
All right. I'm trying to think where we should begin. We're definitely getting into some gambling stuff and stuff. I would love to get into the spat that Robert Kennedy Jr. and Elizabeth Warren got into yesterday.
Yeah, she was definitely on the warpath.
No pun intended. Or at least half of 1%.
She was out for a scalp, and
Oh, well, moving on anyway, because I don't get political on this show. It's not worth it. There's always potential sponsors out there that are like, are you one side or the other? I'm neither side. I hate them all, basically.
I just like to make fun of people.
I do too, to a degree. I don't know. Let me get your thoughts quickly just about the upcoming Super Bowl and Philadelphia, and then we can get in. The Patriots are doing all the right things, all the right coaching hires. I like everything they've done so far. With Marone and others that they have here on the team. But just a quick thought: are you going to be rooting for the Eagles, or do you care, or you're sort of about prop bets and what else got coming up in the Super Bowl? Is it all about just prop bets, or you don't care who wins, or you don't want Kansas City to win 3 in a row?
It's funny you mentioned props, and I actually wrote a story yesterday. Today is the day in Las Vegas, the Westgate Superbook. They're the ones that every year they come out with all the crazy props, like who's going to have more points, Jaylen Brown or Pat Mahomes. Those come out today actually.
Do you like those? Do you like those on the whole?
Well, I think they're fun. And there's a really cool story behind it. Again, you can read it. I posted it on my Twitter account.
I tweeted it for you too. I just saw
it. They started doing this in the 1980s. There's a fellow named Jay Cornegay who's really well known in gambling circles. He was at the Imperial Palace Sportsbook, which used to be down on the end of the strip near Caesar's Palace. If you go to Vegas, it's kind of in that end, that part of the strip. It's no longer with us. And what was happening was there was a string of about 13 or 14 years where the NFC was winning every Super Bowl and winning it by like 20 points.
Tons.
The Patriots fans would know they were in the middle of that with Super Bowl 20.
And that was
And
one of
so
the closer ones.
what was going on at the book was the games were decided at halftime and they weren't getting any action. So they decided to, they basically invented these bets. And I'm talking about like how many yards is Jim McMahon going to throw for us? So that's how the prop bets themselves began. They began because there was no action on the Super Bowl beyond everyone betting the NFC team. So they decided to come up with new things to bet on. And they realized you can bet on how many yards a player is going to get, how many touchdowns a quarterback's going to have. And the biggest, literally and figuratively, the wager that put this on the map was whether or not William Perry is going to score in the Super Bowl. That was a bet you could have made in Las Vegas in January of 1986. That was offered, whether or not William Perry would score a touchdown. And obviously he did. So that sort of got this whole Super Bowl prop thing going. And it just sort of grew. And, like everything else, the more you do it, the more, ideas you come up with. The first time they did it, they had 30 bets on one sheet of paper.
Wow.
Last year, the Superbook had 36 pages, both sides, 500 bets. And they expect to have as many this year. I'll post them when I get them. But so that's how this sort of thing came up. And, they had, and another famous bet that sort of helped this whole thing go on was Super Bowl 24. And it was the 55-10 Joe Montana game. And there was a prop as to whether or not the 49ers or Michael Jordan would score more points that weekend.
Yep.
And Jordan scored 39 on Saturday night. And then, of course, the 49ers scored 55. So that sort of began, all of this began because of the fact that back in the 80s and early 90s, the NFC was winning every Super Bowl. And the books need action. They need reasons, and of course this was pre-internet, so you had to go into the book and bet. So they needed reasons for people to come into the sports book and lay wagers. So they came up with this sort of whole prop bet thing, and now it's become this monstrosity. I think some of them are fun, and they have a team of about 10 people that spend 2 days. They give them a room in the convention area. And they're just locked in. They have they bring them catering and everything. And these people spend 2 whole days coming up with all these plays. So it's really kind of interesting how it all developed. And then, today, once they come out with their bets, then a lot of other operators, just sort of piggyback on them and just, they do all the work. This is kind of a thing, in the sports betting community. And I actually went to the Superbook in October when I was out there for a convention, and I talked to the people, and I went out there knowing that I was going to write this story for the Super Bowl. And I'm glad I did, because I was, it's always fun to go to where you're writing about and looking at the board and actually how big it is. And it's huge. Their book is huge. And their board is probably, it's not as tall as the Patriots scoreboard, but it's certainly as long as the Patriots scoreboard. It covers the whole casino from front to back. So it's a really interesting, kind of side thing for betting. But the end result is that for anyone who has, DraftKings or FanDuel or even, here in Florida, you're going to have a lot of interesting cross-sport bets that you can make that you won't have for other games, just because it's the Super Bowl. They could do this for any. You could have a prop every day as to who's going to score more points, the Patriots or Jaylen Brown. That's nothing illegal about it. It's just it's a lot of work for for the trading team to have to come up with this stuff every day. But for the Super Bowl, it's kind of like a one-off.
Yeah, I'm looking at the NBA schedule for Super Bowl Sunday. There's only just the NBA, and I'll look at college, and there's only 3 games, and of course they're all before. They're all at 1 and 2 o'clock. Charlotte at Detroit.
No.
Toronto at Houston. And Philadelphia at Milwaukee at 2 o'clock. That's
so there'll be Giannis
Oh,
stuff. He'll be
Embiid,
one, and of course
play or
he'll do
not.
Saturday too.
Will Embiid play or not? That could be a prop bet as always. Will Joel Embiid play or not?
And it's funny because, and there are books that if you come up with a prop that that they're not offering, they might take it as long as it falls within, the rules of, what's allowed and what isn't allowed. You're not going to be able to do the old Taylor Swift, what color dress is she going to wear? You're not going to be able to do, is she going to kiss Travis Kelce after the game? You're not going to be able to do, is Taylor Swift pregnant? I say yes, plus 750. You're not going to be able to do any of those stuff legally in the U.S.
Can I ask you something, though? Back in the day, I know this was a prop bet. When John and Pat were doing the game, John Madden, Pat Summerall, and there was a prop bet many, many years when they had it, when he had to call the game. How many times John Madden would say, boom? Why wouldn't he call somebody 10 times removed from him, put $1 gazillion on it, and then go boom, 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 right out of the gate and get that done? I always thought that was crazy.
But those weren't legal. In other words, all of those wagers, anything that has to do with something not on the field, save for the coin toss,
overseas stuff,
and the Gatorade thing, and the national anthem, those 3 are separate because those are allowed in a lot of states. But anything beyond that, anything about the TV, anything about, how many times Tom Brady's going to say, all of that, or I should say none of that, none of those wages are allowed in any legal jurisdiction in the United States. They're offered on offshore books. Some of them are being offered in these trading markets, and some of them are available in Canada. Like if you bet FanDuel in Canada, they did have Taylor Swift plays because those sorts of bets are legal in Canada. They're not legal in any state in the United States. No jurisdiction, no regulatory board has allowed any sports book in the United States to take action on Taylor Swift. Would the sports books in the United States want to take action on Taylor Swift? Of course they would, but they can't, and they know. I can tell you right off the bat, in Massachusetts, the good citizens of the Commonwealth, when they're not harboring murderous illegal aliens, they're not allowed to bet on the coin toss. In the state of Massachusetts, you cannot legally wager on the Super Bowl coin toss. So there's no way that DraftKings is going to go to the Mass Gaming Commission or even the Ohio Casino Control Commission or the Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board. And it's sick that I know all these different names. But they're not going to even bother asking them, can we bet on, Taylor Swift seen on TV? Because they're not going to allow them to offer that stuff because of what you said.
I love your tweet earlier today. I was 11 when I bought my first parlay card in elementary school. Would not recommend. We all did. There was always that one kid, and it was $1, right? It was usually $1. You had to pick 5 teams, and if you got them all,
it seems so easy, right? It was like, come on. Like, of course the Cowboys are going to win this week. Of course the Steelers are going to win this week. And no one ever won.
Yeah. Well, the ones that I remember, and I didn't do it often back then, but once in a while, $1 wins back 20 if you pick 4 teams or whatever.
Yeah.
It's probably underpaid no matter what, even for $1. But they did have the point spread on it. But it could be very different from the real point spread, up by a couple of points. And then come Sunday, you didn't have the injury report back then, and for me, mid-70s, I'm like, you're not following it. You hope and pray.
Oh, everybody was flying blind except the 4 people who actually knew what was going on, and they were making a killing.
Oh, my God. Hey, I also saw this, as long as we're talking about gambling here. The Pennsylvania Gaming Control Board has come under some scrutiny here, right? I see that they have been fined.
Well, they issued That caught my eye yesterday. They issued a $250,000 fine against BetMGM because apparently, they don't normally post like in Massachusetts when they fine an operator, they issue like a finding. And you can go online and you can read all the findings and stuff. In Pennsylvania, you have to request them. And I wasn't going to bother doing that because they just gave me the information. But apparently, there were 152 times in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania where someone who was on their self-exclusion list was allowed to bet at BetMGM. I don't know if it was the same person who bet 152 times, probably was, or if it was 10 people who bet 15.
Can you explain a self-exclusion list
Sure.
in layman's
The
terms?
Every state has what's called a self-exclusion list, and if you're on it, you know what it is. Basically, it's for people who have gambling problems, who put their information, they submit their information to the Gaming Control Commission or the regulatory board, and that is supposed to prevent them from betting or signing up for any online legal sports book, because when you sign up for a sports book, you give your social security number, you give all your identification stuff, and they're supposed to, electronically cross-check against this list of people who have voluntarily said, I have a problem with gambling, so don't allow me to log into your website to gamble. And it's also for retail casinos. Like if I'm on a self-exclusion list and I walk into Encore and they check my ID, that's one reason why they check IDs in addition to age. They'll scan my license. And if I'm on the self-exclusion list, they're going to say, you're not allowed to come in here, because it's sort of like, doing it for your own good. Or sometimes it might even be ordered, as part of treatment. It really depends, but it's a way for people who have gambling problems, who realize they have gambling problems, to another sort of barrier to prevent them from betting again, by saying, I've given the state, the regulatory board, the information so that if I do try to, set up an account at DraftKings with my information, they're not going to let me do it.
I also thought you had another great tweet yesterday that I saw. And 37 years in journalism, 30 years as an editor, wrote hundreds of dummy headlines, but
Yes.
never hit send until the game was over. And then it's something because Callie Mean says, astounding, reporters at RFK hearing have pre-written negative headlines. Bill, I used to see that when I was covering the Celtics, besides being on the air and working 7 days a week, when I was covering a couple of really bad Celtic and Bruins teams at the same time, I won't say their names, but there's a lot of guys that would have the positive column and the negative column all ready to go, depending on what happened. And it's some of it was such phony baloney stuff. I'd read it the next day, going, Jesus, man. And then if God forbid a comeback happened, it would really screw them up, badly, because they already had it all. Some of that written, but this has been going on for a long time, right?
Yeah, it has, and I'm a critic of a lot of things that the media does, and somebody puts something up there, they get 20 million impressions. You can't really fight that tide.
No.
But as someone who spent 25 years putting out newspapers on deadline, I would spend the better part of my night writing the lead headline, and I was kind of pretty good at it, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you always had headlines in mind. And to me, the whole point is, it doesn't matter what's on the screen at 9 a.m. It matters what you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, there's been trillions and trillions and trillions of columns written, or stories written in advance, headlines written in advance. To me, all that matters is what ends up in the product, right? If that headline turned out to be accurate and it ended up in the product, that's fine. But I think you sort of pointed out before we even began, the real story yesterday was the senior senator from Massachusetts and the esteemed son of the former attorney general. It wasn't really a general grilling per se. It was really a personal battle between Kennedy and Senator Warren. So, and sometimes you have to do this because you're dealing with like a physical space constraint. You're limited to a certain number of characters. Like there are certain management systems that only allow you to write certain number of characters in a headline. So you're kind of trying to mess with the words. So there's a million reasons why somebody would do that. I don't think it's really that nefarious. But a lot of people don't understand how the business works. So they're going to think the worst. Again, for someone who did this for many years, to me, all that matters is what ends up in the final product. It doesn't matter to me what was on the page. Like I said, I wrote a million headlines when you'd have the whole page laid out on the screen and I'd spend 20, 30 minutes writing headlines. And then once the game ended or once, the event occurred, you have to reflect what happened.
Do you think that also, sticking on this subject a little bit here, Bill, that some writers, not at the Herald, but at other places, not just in Massachusetts, but around the country, go back and pick out a similar column that they're going to write that day from 25 years ago, just kind of tweak it a tiny bit and replace certain names with new names and certain time. I think that happens more times than not too. In a lot of ways. And I know nowadays you can like copy and paste, you can check everything. I'm not talking about plagiarism. I'm talking about a guy who wrote a column 25, 30 years ago, and it's the same sort of topic, and then picks it out or finds it in his files and looks at it and just tweaks a name here, a name there, a team here, a team there, and just sends it out again.
I would say
that happens.
It's funny because, like I said, I was an editor. And I think 4 or 5, I can't even remember how many newspapers I worked at, but I dealt with a lot of writers that everybody would know. Woj, Schefter, just for a few. Joe Shad was our intern. Jeff Darlington got me a Diet Coke the first time I met him because he was our intern. So, but I can say at all of my years, I never ran into that.
Okay.
So I can say from my experience, it never happened. Does it happen? I would venture to say that maybe like pre-internet, it happened a lot.
Yeah.
But I think I would say in this century and in the last 20 years of the last century when I worked, or last 15, I mean, I never saw it personally. If I was aware of it, maybe it happened and I wasn't aware of it. But I work with a lot of people who had worked for a long time. And I think it's not necessarily what you said. I just think it's a habit. So in other words, it's not necessarily that they're literally copying and pasting. It's just sort of the muscle memory. Like if someone let's say somebody covers the Masters and they write sort of the same type of column every year, focusing on the azaleas and the lush greens and Amen Corner and Hogan's Bridge and all that stuff. They might mentally reset that every year, thinking, in my opinion, that's always the story about Augusta. So I think it's more that than a literal, control paste into the thing. And again, I've always maintained that one cannot steal from oneself. Plagiarism is taking the work of others without credit. So you can't plagiarize yourself. To me, it's just laziness and lack of creativity. It's not plagiarism. It's a different crime, but it's still a crime.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've used phrases over and over again, but when I do that, it's more for effect.
Yes.
And it's done on purpose. I mean, I got as much mileage out of Gerard Rust as I could. But unfortunately, they fired him. I don't really have a good name for Mike Vrabel. But I was I was happy with Gerard Rust. It sort of helped us get over the hump. So, when that happens, you sort of use it. Dan calls them the Tampa Bay Red Sox. I call them the Pittsfield Red Sox. So it's both the same thing. If I'm not going to copy someone like Dan and he's not going to, copy me. And we do have I have a good relationship with him, actually. He's been really good to me, frankly. So no, it's not someone, rewriting literally what they wrote. It's just using similar phrasing or similar subject matter or similar focus. You know, and frankly, if you're covering an event, if you're a columnist at an event, right? I mean, if you're a beat reporter, you're Celtics lose, you write the story. Sidebar, Porzingis' injury, right? That dictates the and to what you were saying yesterday. Whatever happened on Capitol Hill should dictate that story. The fact that she had a dummy head to me is no big deal. As long as what was published, and I haven't looked. I should read her story on the Daily Mail. I haven't looked at what was published, but as long as what was published accurately reflected the hearing, her biases going into the hearing, it's a given. I think all their biases are a given. To me, it matters what is written, or what do you post on social media, or what do you talk about in a video. I'm always, as an editor, I've always been focused on the final product. Because that was my job, literally. Like, we got 38 seconds to edit this column and hit send on this page. So I was always focused on the final product. How the sausage was made, as long as we didn't, commit some journalistic crime or violate ethics or, do something untoward, that's fine. Whatever you have to do to get your story up on deadline is fine. As long as, and we've had a few, I had a few, dummy headlines that slipped through, put headline here, might have made the first edition of the Connecticut Post a couple of times in the mid 90s. But, that's just basic human error. That stuff happens. But it's not nefarious. I'm not so sure what happened yesterday was nefarious. I just think it was someone who obviously, I bet $300 I could tell you her political affiliation, but I don't think that has anything to do with how you mechanically do your job.
Gotcha. Finally, on the back of the Herald today, or is it yesterday? It says, chief concern, KC threatens Patriots legacy. Now, you're down here in Florida, but I get the feeling that the Eagles are going to have a lot of opinion. Now, I've been saying for a while, even though I picked Detroit, but I've been saying for a while the Eagles are the best team top to bottom. But just from a buzz standpoint, the Eagles may never have more Patriot fans than they will for this Super Bowl, right? I mean, nobody, and I like dynasties. I don't hate Kansas City. I don't think that if they do, Kansas City does win 3 years in a row, it's going to take anything away from the Patriots. The Patriots rebuilt their team 3 separate times under Belichick and won a whole bunch of Super Bowls. I give Andy Reid all the credit in the world and all that stuff. I don't feel, I'm not threatened by the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe the Generation Zs or some of the other people. But you agree with me, the Philadelphia Eagles will never have more fans, not just from the Northeast, but nationally, except for Giants fans and maybe or Cowboy fans. But everybody around the country is going to be rooting for Philadelphia, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was just like with 20 years ago with the Patriots. Everybody was rooting against the Patriots, and I covered all those codicils in my column, and there's sort of 3 things you're trying to balance here. One is Roger Goodell's tailor-made Super Bowl. What the NFL wants, the NFL gets. There's holy crap, the Chiefs are good.
Yeah,
and there's. Let's, keep in mind the Patriots did this over 20 years. Tom Brady has 7 Super Bowls. He beat Mahomes head-to-head in the Super Bowl. He beat him head-to-head in the AFC Championship game. Belichick beat Andy Reid in the Super Bowl. To me, it's like in Stratego. If you keep your spy and your bomb around your general, you can never lose because the spy and the bomb kill everything but the other team's
what a great game.
General.
Underrated.
And Stratego and Steve Spagnuolo is like the spy and the bomb in Stratego because he beat the Patriots in Super Bowl 42. So he's got kind of like the ultimate, Ethan Hunt, James Bond, like I'm in Chile when you think I'm in Berlin card. But aside from that, I think, what was the Patriots, from the, Robert Kraft's trying to get the Hall of Fame, right?
Mm-hmm.
If the Chiefs win the Super Bowl on Sunday, that's not going to help Robert Kraft's case for the Hall of Fame. I'll tell you that, because the Chiefs have, the Hunt family is pristine and clean, and Norma Hunt went to every Super Bowl until 2 years ago, and they are beloved by the NFL establishment. I mean, God, Lamar Hunt invented.
Yeah, but they had a bunch of issues too. Let's not.
Well, I know that, Pete,
but they had their Tyreek Hill situation. They had a lot of issues over the guys getting killed in a parking lot. I mean, there's a lot of stuff.
But I agree with you, but we're dealing with perception of the establishment.
No, I agree with you. I understand. They're royalty. There's no doubt about it.
Yes, that's a good term for it.
Yep. My man, you are the best. Thank you so much because taking time out. I know I'm sorry about yesterday, and thank you so much for joining me today, as always. And
always fun, Pete.
We'll have a better understanding of point spreads and prop bets next week, I'm sure.
Yeah. Like I said, all those fun bets will be posted tonight, and a lot of them will migrate to whatever betting app you use. There's been no line movement on this game. It jumped to 2 early. All the early sharp money was on the Chiefs, and the Chiefs money line especially has been hammered. So there's been no line movement yet, but still 80% of the money bet on the Super Bowl will be bet next Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So don't put a whole lot of stock into any line movement unless, somebody posts a sharp play of like $3 million on a certain side. If it's Joe Blow betting $3 million, they don't care. Yeah. But if it's, a sharp betting $3 million, you might see a line movement. But it's been really steady so far.
All right, Bill. Awesome stuff. Check Bill Sparrows out on the Boston Herald and also the senior betting analyst at bookies.com. Check out that webpage as well. Great stuff. Always a pleasure, Bill. We'll talk next week. Thank you so much.
Yep.
All righty. All right, Angel, let's take a full break here. When we come back, Mick Colaggio is going to try to talk me off a cliff about what I should feel about the Boston Bruins. He might feel the same way. I can't figure it out. I'm so confused. Every time I think they're getting good, they get blown out by a horrific team in the Buffalo Sabres, 7-2. But they're back in action tonight, I believe. All right, more coming up with that. Glenn Ordway at the bottom of the hour as well. The Big O, the Massachusetts Broadcaster Hall of Fame, will join me at 9:30. We'll talk about a whole bunch of stuff. I guarantee you that here on the Pete Sheppard Show on the Coastal Sports Network.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
Hey everybody, it's Pete Sheppard from the Coastal Sports Network. Want to tell you about my good friend Lou DiMuzio and his company. Lou is the president and founder of Ace Technology Advisors. They're big-time tech specialists. At ATA, they're able to craft, implement, and manage the best and most appropriate solution for your business. They leverage their industry-leading experience and their portfolio of technology partners to improve your best practices and infrastructure. So you can get a hold of them at 888-599-4223. That's 888-599-4223. Check them out on their webpage, www.acetechadvisors.com. That's www.acetechadvisors.com. Or you can email them, sales@acetechadvisors.com. Check out my friend Lou DiMuzio and Ace Technology Advisors.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad, just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making it safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
All right, class. Let's hear what everyone did this weekend. Jill?
Well, I raised my older sister to a big oak tree. It was at least 100 years old. My mom said I must have set a record or something. And then we went down by a stream and perched up on this huge rock and saw all these little minnows swimming around way below us. And then I rescued my little brother from an evil slug king who was guarding him at the bush fortress. And my sister and I brought him back to our super twig fort for safety. And then we all laid out and told stories until it got dark. And the Big Dipper led us all the way home.
Wow. Awesome. Where were you, Jill?
Yeah. We went to the forest. It's not that far away. Anyone want to come this weekend?
Ask your parents to take you and your friends to the forest this week and find the fun, adventurous you. It's closer than you think. Check out discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
The Pete Sheppard Show. It's fun for the whole family. If it's dysfunctional.
No. No. No, 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 no. You don't deserve it. I won't allow it. It's my show. I'm angry. I'm agitated. I'm irritated, and I don't need Midol, but I do need Mick Colagio to talk me off the Bruins cliff here because I don't get it. Mick Colagio, the great NHL insider, covers the Boston Bruins, and you hear him all over the place around New England, around the country, really. So many podcasts from rinkwrapmc.com, Boston Hockey News, now.com, and other places, and a lot of podcasts. I hate when you have to write about the team after losses like this, and you have to include hideous statistics like they haven't allowed hat tricks by two players in the same game in 8,000 years and a whole bunch of other stuff. You put up some great points the other night. I was thinking the same thing watching it. What happens? Do they go through some sort of a magical reverse curse, a Narnia door when they go on the road? You go to Buffalo and lay a fucking egg like that to those idiots, that horrible, horrific organization? I don't get it, Mick. I don't get it. Every time they take 2 steps forward, it's 8,000 steps back. Help me understand. In the words of Vinny Barbarino and Welcome Back, Carter, I'm so confused. I don't get it. Help me. Help me. Help me. What happens to them when they go on the road?
Okay, I'm going to quote John Tortorella, who happens to coach the Philadelphia Flyers these days.
I wish he was. Well, maybe.
But he said. But when he was asked a question recently, he just said, "I don't have the answer." Maybe somebody in there does. It's not the results in the scoreboard where the madness comes in.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you see things happening and unfolding on the ice that drive you absolutely bananas. Like, why did Zadorov back off 20 feet and give away the blue line to this guy? You know, it's like,
it looked like it was in a force field. It looked like it was
the absence of forecheck.
Yes.
Followed by the absence of back check.
Boom.
And I guess that's why the Ds have to give away the blue line if there's no back pressure. But it's just inexplicable stuff that happens to these guys on the road that doesn't happen at home. Now, I know the second period is a long change, and the second period was the disastrous period, but the home team has a long change too in this age of homogenized, equal opportunity NHL rinks. They're not all still like the Bright Landry Center at Harvard University, where the penalty box is 5 feet from the home bench. So that, a guy gets out of the box, he puts one skate on the ice and twirls 5 feet and a half a circle, and he's on the bench, and they're getting their line change the way they want. And the road team has to go clear across the ice. In this case, everybody, no matter which team you're on, in the second period, your bench is that much farther away. However, somehow this has become a point of a disaster zone for the Bruins. Bad line changes, weak sides left wide open. It seems like a speck of confusion for them in the middle of a road game is worth 2.5 goals to the opposition. And I don't understand exactly what's going on that brings this out in them. Sometimes they start the game off with an early flurry of forechecking pressure, smart dump ins, and a lot of adrenaline. And suddenly it subsides and it's a bunch of easy outs. The Buffalo Sabres got way too many easy outs on Tuesday night against the Boston Bruins in Buffalo. And the Boston Bruins are at home tonight against a really tough team, and you're backboned by the likely Vezina Trophy winner in the Winnipeg Jets in their own building.
UMass little guy in net.
Connor or as I love to call him, Connor Hellebusik.
Connor Hellebuck from UMass Lowell, great goalie.
Yep. So, boy. You know what? Here's the thing, you say there's so many chances they don't have as many chances left as other teams because everybody either is even or has games in hand on the Bruins. So, and then what's these home games that are coming up against worthy opponents?
Yeah.
What do they got? They got the Jets, and what is the weekend? They got the Golden Knights, and then they got the Wild. Those are three tough teams that are coming into their building in these next 3 home games. When they're done with the month of February, this is very unlike the old school Bruins schedule. It used to be like gone for most of February, and the stinky elephants would come into the old guy.
Yes.
And then the Bruins would be loaded with home games in March to finish off the regular season. It's been just the opposite in recent years, including this year. They're going to have way more road hockey left to play after the Four Nations Cup tournament is over than they do right this minute. They're pretty 50-50. But they're going to, if they don't make good on their home games, and then you consider what their road record is this year and how they haven't solved their road problems and how non-resilient they have been, they bend and then they snap. I don't see a path to the playoffs for them if they don't go on a tear here right now.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, they're a point ahead, but as you said, the Tampa Bay Lightning are technically in 8th place in the conference, but they have 3 games in hand of the Bruins, and so do a lot of other teams, including Columbus.
They have a playoff record. Yeah.
Yeah. And, the Bruins on the road, 9-14-3 at home. It's okay. 16-7-3. But how much of this is coaching on the rate? How much of this is on Joe Sacco? How much of this, I mean, this is like, we can say all we want about Cassie, and you can, I don't get it. I don't.
Well, you're skipping right past Monty, but
that's what I meant. I meant and Monty,
of course. And well, I'll ask it in reverse. If you subtract the Bruins' uptick in adrenaline-laced wins when Joe Sacco took over the bench, then the body of work since then is much closer to being comparable to the body of work that after 20 games, 8, 9, and 3, Jim Montgomery was dismissed. So for the Bruins to what has been their flat line, what's their identity? Where is it really for them? And at the end of the day, you take away that 2 weeks or 10 days, where they reeled off a few wins. I think they were 5-1-3 to start. I don't know if it was that good, but they were good. And the one thing I'll say is that the Bruins have done a better job sustaining their structure. They've shown more situations in which they've been able to explode to come back and win games. And they were crucial in the third. But still vulnerable to the blowout on the road.
And not just a blowout on the road, Mick, to the worst team in the league, I think. It's certainly one of the top two. They're terrible. They're terrible. I know there's talent.
How are the Rangers playing when the Bruins went into New York on January 2nd?
I know.
And they inexplicably lost that game. And I know the Rangers have used that night as a powder keg for a dramatic turnaround to their season. They were gifted confidence by the Bruins. That was under their tree, and they came away from that with, hey, we're a good team, let's go. And they did, and they have, and now they've become interesting. As far as the playoff bubble picture goes, they're back in it. And the Bruins, meanwhile, have just done this meandering thing where it's a little up, it's a little down. They rally, they play with a lot of emotion at home, and they pull out some wins. Competition's tough now. Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm, the top two defensemen, may be returning shortly. That was a scary injury for Lindholm when he blocked that shot on the road and broke a kneecap, and reportedly would make sense with the whole story of how things have gone and what they've had to say, which is very little. Now get those guys back, and if McAvoy is looking at 4 nations, and congratulations to the McAvoy family, beautiful baby boy with little pudgy cheeks just like his daddy.
Yeah,
and
it's a BU thing.
And
Boston College or Providence or UNH.
Well, yeah. So it's been an interesting season for the Bruins. There's a lot of opinions out there. Fire these clowns. Fire everybody. Trade everybody. Here's my list. I'd keep Pasta, and everybody else can go. Hey, is it possible? I'm just going to throw this out there. Is it possible that it will take Elias Lindholm a whole season in Boston to calm the storm of movement in his career that goes back not only to this last summer, but to the prior season in which he was traded from Calgary to the Vancouver Canucks, wound up playing poorly for them in the regular season, but really actually was very good in their playoffs. If you look at their stats, he's right near the top. And you say, okay, well, what's going on with there? Who did he play with? Is he a guy that needs to be elevated and just does good defensive things when everything else is laid out perfectly for him? Is that who he is? And is that guy you paid almost $8 million a year, made a long-term commitment, or is he capable of impacting the lineup? But it just hasn't gelled for him yet. He hasn't found his landing spot yet, and it's just going to take more time than 10 games or one training camp and he was in a perfect storm of a bunch of guys who had been on the team last year, who came back this year and stunk. Some of them had reasons. Brad Marchand, 3 off-season surgeries. Jeremy Swayman, no training camp. Yeah, his fault, of course, but it happened, and it impacted the lineup. And his backup, Jonas Korpisalo, played very well during that stretch, but they had to get Swayman going, and he was vulnerable, as the team was. That it's happening this late in the season, this deep in the season, when they desperately need reliable, consistent performances on the road, they're not getting them. And if this walks like the duck of 2015. It walks like the duck of other years where they wound up missing the playoffs. That's the duck that we're looking at.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Elias Lindholm, because I was going to, and your buddy Brian DeFelice tweeted it out, that Lindholm's empty net goal versus San Jose, that was back on January 20th. That's the last time a Bruins forward scored a goal besides Pasternak or Morgan Geekie. Why? Is that just effort, coaching, a little of both? I mean, that's unbelievable statistic.
The Bruins last season were a team that moved Pavel Zacha to center for the majority of the season. He wound up running out of steam in that spot and got moved for wing and down to third line, etc. Charlie Coyle was elevated to play in the other top six position and played very, very well throughout the season. He was a monster on the puck. He's had good stretches this season. His game seems like it's come around, but Charlie Coyle still falls into the category of the guy that you put into a position that's not the ideal spot for him. But if everything else is going well, then he can be great. So if he's got to carry it on his back, then that's not the spot you want him in. Too many things have been off this year. Too many things have been, I've never.
What's the identity of this team? Like, where is the identity of this team? Where are the captains in all of this?
The identity of the team is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because home and away, and it's one of my Twitter followers brought this one up, and I agree with him. That's it right there. They don't change any systems on the road. They don't pressure when they're killing a penalty on the road, they don't pressure the points the same. Well,
but Sacco's going to be showing them stuff in the film room, right? Like, look, here's a home game. I'm sure he's doing that stuff.
Well,
and it's just
Matt
not.
Myers is, of course, they're looking at this stuff. Meetings. But then it gets to a point of mental health, and you say, you go into the rink, how hard do you want to be gripping your hockey stick? It's a game of speed. It's a game of chemistry. It's a game of confidence. It's a game of belief. And right now, this team has struggled away from home to generate and sustain that belief over 60 minutes. I'll back that up, over 25, because second periods have been rough on them.
Yeah.
So it's hard to put a finger on it, but I tend to wonder if the best thing for the Bruins to do here is very little. This isn't baseball where you tear it down one year to the next and rent players and drop them and sign them and move them and this and that. Oh, we had a bad year. Well, we're having a good year. Let's trade all our prospects and get more pitching. If we're that makes more sense to me. But ripping it up, the way teams tear it down so quickly in baseball is really strange to me. And I'm used to hockey where your team needs to grow together. A team needs to. I don't think the Bruins are off base based on last season to think that if you added a strong two-way, three-zone, 200-foot player like Lindholm to the middle, and then you can decide whether to pursue to put Zacha, make him a center in the top six, playing on a line with David Pasternak, or keep Charlie Coyle up there while Matt Poitras develops either in Providence or as your third-line center. Those are all good options. And Morgan Geekie showed that in a pinch he can play center. Last year he wound up in the playoffs that way, and so it's a situation that should not be this discouraging from a roster personal standpoint. So the fact that Bruins management has been quiet and has really kind of tried to wait this out makes perfect sense. They're on the bubble. They've been on the bubble since the situation unfolded the way it has early on, and they're going to need to just take the best offers they can to decide what they got to do. And I think there are other leverages. Well, if they believe they can sign Trent Frederick, I'd love to see them re-sign him because he's been good in a lot of ways for them. But if they're going to have to overpay him to keep him, then the idea of Trent Frederick may yield a better future for them than than what they get from Trent Frederick. So they got to make a decision about him. And similarly with Justin Brazo, but the idea of tearing this team down because of the season they've had, to me, is way, way premature based on last season's body of work. It may be that Zadorov will be much better in his second season for the Bruins than he was and it has been in his first, much like Zdeno Chara was. It may be that Elias Lindholm needs to find his niche and let it happen. And well, they're kind of stuck there anyway with that contract. So that's kind of already decided.
Last couple of minutes here with Rick Michelangelo. Last time we spoke and they were a situation like this, they had Edmonton at home. I said, maybe they're going to play up to the level of competition instead of playing down. And they got hammered 5-1, I believe, in that game. I hope the situation is different tonight. I mean, you got to be extremely motivated after that pathetic performance and then going up against arguably the best team in the NHL this year, the Winnipeg Jets. It's certainly one of the two. What about Swayman? They left him in for the entire game again. And I don't put the blame on some of those goals that they scored. He had no chance. Absolutely none. Maybe one, I thought maybe he could have stopped. It was a high far side shot. I thought he got
the last one by Peterka? Yeah, it was a great shot, but you'd like to see him nab that
what
one.
About leaving him in for all of these goals? Like, now there's an empty netter, but they left him in again. Not the first
slightly
time
north of the dot,
sending him a message again about missing training camp? Or is that over? Am I overthinking it?
I think that when I've been always on the side of a team makes a goalie look good or bad. Teams there are a million great coaches out there, a million great goalies out there. Getting the right one for your team is the trick. The Bruins committed to making Swayman that guy, but they poorly assessed what it was going to take to get him signed. And they got him signed, but for his situation and for others of equal significance, the season, it just never really came together for them. They've become a decent home team. They're a terrible road team. Now they get these tough home games. It's going to be a lot of Swayman. If there's back-to-backs, then you're going to get Jonas Corposalo. He's been very reliable for them. He's had a shutout recently, and he earned it. So, and they haven't been healthy on the back end. The top players on the defense haven't been there. So at best, this is a struggle. This is a grind. What position are they going to be in when these guys come back to the lineup? Trade deadline is 1 week into March, and it's a little late this year. And their performance in these games is going to tell us a lot because they're not coming back from this the way they played on the road this year. They've got to win some big games now.
No, and if they say they just, we've seen it a million times, right? Mick, last question about, just get in the tournament, anything can happen, the old Bill Parcells line. Is it possible that this could be one of those teams, and they haven't been in this situation in a long time, they finish the 7th or 8th and then somehow flips a switch, turns it on, and can make a deep run in the postseason? I think back over the years, over the 7th and 8th place teams, and you go, no, that's never going to happen. And a lot of times it does. Maybe, is it possible?
No, I don't. I'm watching the hockey. I'm in the weeds.
Yeah.
And in the weeds, I don't see it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of teams that you accurately described, the 2012 LA Kings.
Yeah.
So teams that do these things, the Flyers in 10, they make it in a shootout on the final day and go to game 6 of the overtime of the Stanley Cup final. What were they doing before anybody knew that any of this was going to happen? What did it look like? Well, if this just happens and that just happens, we can find a few more. I always figured, if the Bruins could get a Tyler Toffoli type or a guy who can ease some of these one-goal games, when they started playing well under Sacco, to me that would have been the perfect time to add a stick like his. And that way you get like a goal here, a goal there, something that eases some of these road games that you were very tight in. And one goal either way. And you're not going to get him every night. But if he could influence 5 of those games, you're comfortably in the playoffs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, instead, you are where you are. And sometimes I think patience can work against. But I don't know who was available, what they could have done. But if they could have made a move like that when they first started playing well under Joe Sacco, to me, that would have been the time to do it. Now that's gone. All the trajectory now is toward the trade deadline. And some teams are going to try to get ahead of it by doing things before the league shuts down for the Four Nations Cup in the middle of February. And we'll see what the Bruins do. Big O coming, right?
Big O's coming up, buddy. Thanks so much. We'll be looking forward to how can people get a hold of you again in all ways, shapes, and forms on a bunch of podcasts. So plug away, my friend.
All right. Well, I live blogged the home games at Rink Rap, which I link to on X and Facebook. Mm-hmm. I contribute to seasonal issues of hockey news. And the next one that's coming out is the Future Watch, the Prospects Edition, what's around the corner. And so I actually think the Bruins have some interesting ones right now. They got a teenage D playing regular for Quinnipiac right now named Elliot Gronwald from Springfield, Vermont. Hell of a hockey player. So there's some things underneath there for the Bruins that I know that they get a worldwide rating of horrible when it comes to futures, but they were saying this about the Bruins 2 years ago, and now look at Matt Poitras and Mason Lowry in their lineup. So I'm not writing off them that way. But anyway, I'm going to get out of the way here and let you talk to the big guy.
All right, Mick, you're the best. We'll talk soon. Thanks so much. We're looking forward to reading your stuff.
Thanks, Pete. Glad to hear you're back in shape, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was a little out of it yesterday. All right. From one Boston legend to another, who's now in Arizona, making a case for another Hall of Fame out there. Massachusetts Broadcaster Hall of Famer, inductee last year. Glenn Big O Ordway joining me here on the Pete Sheppard Show here. A little Marky Mark for you. Make you feel home under that burning, dry Arizona heat. Big O, good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Excellent.
Good. I was wondering if your ringtone this morning was Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Elizabeth Warren going at it yesterday.
God, unbelievable. Boy, what a shock. Elizabeth Warren got like $1.8 million from the pharmaceutical business, and she's asking RFK Jr. not to sue them. Okay.
Hey, I learned something about RFK Jr. There may have been Caroline that said it. He makes a good bird milkshake. I mean, that's really, really good.
Yeah.
Grinding up the birds in the blender, and then that's it. I didn't even see that on Chopped. I mean, that's unbelievable.
I mean, I've heard some people do some bizarre stuff over the years, but when you hear about some of his animal escapades, there are
olive oil in slowly and drilling like an alveoli. You do it slowly, one egg at a time. So how do you do that?
Yeah, little bit weird. A little bit weird. But there are a lot of weird people in Washington, as you know. A lot of them.
No question, Bob. Well, thanks for taking a few.
My pleasure.
As always, Hall of Famer. We just found out that Dale Arnold is getting inducted into the Broadcasters
Congratulations
Hall of Fame.
to Dale. Yes.
Yep. I'm going to try to make my way up there for that. And
that's good. We're starting to see EEI people in the Hall of Fame. It's very nice.
Yes, despite the management. And, we're definitely going to talk about it. I talked about it this morning, and I read some of the quotes from some anonymous people.
Wow.
Not
me, by the way.
It sounded like you and me for the last.
It sounded like every employee that's ever worked for the company.
Right. And all anonymous, and all saying the same thing. A bunch of and I'm paraphrasing, a bunch of jackasses coming in that have more banker resumes than they do broadcast resumes. Yeah. And, David Field screwed the whole thing up, screwed Daddy's legacy up. And that press release was embarrassing that he sent out, trying to make it sound like. But it's just another case. Somebody said, I knew as soon as it went to bankruptcy court, he'd be out. He'd be dead meat. And he just said it only took 3.5 hours. Somebody said before all this shit hit the fan. So nobody should be surprised by this. But anybody who works in that company, no matter what market they're in, better be ready for the avalanche of dismissals. It's coming. It's going to happen again.
Well, I don't feel good about any of that because there are still a lot of people that are working within the company that are friends of mine. But
me too.
The radio business, as you know, is not what it used to be. Yeah. And it's going to be very difficult for not only that company to bring itself back from bankruptcy, but a lot of other companies that are either gone through the same thing like iHeart or about to go through the same thing, like some of the Beasley and other companies out there. Yep. So unfortunately, that's where the radio business is. David Field certainly made more mistakes, and you and I could have counted them as they were all happening. And most of the staff saw them as they were all happening. And it's unfortunate, and, it certainly didn't help you or I And it certainly isn't helping any of these people right now that are still employed by the company.
I remember
So
one
feel bad
day,
for
I don't know
them.
if I remember one day, it must have been 2002, 3, or 4, something like that. You and I had gotten to Fenway at the same time, parked across the street, and David Field, mostly you and David had a conversation. I was involved a little bit.
I had a good relationship
And
with him.
You did, but I couldn't believe some of the shit that day that was coming out of his mouth. I remember talking to you afterwards, I think. It was like, is he serious? Does he understand what we do, what's going on? And I mean, it was so, and then it got worse and worse and worse.
No, unfortunately, he didn't understand an awful lot. And it was a company that, a corporate that tried to get involved in the local markets, which there's nothing wrong with that. They own the company. They should have the right to do that. But they never understood the local markets. And so instead of allowing the people that were in the local markets to tell you, because radio is local, that's what it is.
It is.
So instead of doing that, they made their own decisions sitting in an office in Philadelphia. And Philly is different than Boston, and certainly different than, Portland, Oregon, or Seattle, Washington. These markets are much different, especially when you're talking about the spoken word, whether it's sports or news. And they were making decisions that just didn't make sense. And the management people throughout the country were saying the same thing. This is not going to work. But the problem was, what are you going to do? You try to push the guy aside, you're going to lose your job. And, people needed jobs. And that's the shame of the business, Pete.
I tried the last place I was at, I was and I would try to have these conversations with some, because the corporate offices were in Naples. So, and I would sit there and it's like, you cannot treat what we have here in the Fort Myers market, Southwest Florida, the same way that you do with Sports Hub in Boston or the other stations they had in Vegas, Philadelphia. Right. Same thing. I used to try and respectfully voice my opinion. Then I just gave up because I'm like, none of you fucking people could make it outside of that building for you last a day, especially in Philly and Boston and a couple of other places. You wouldn't make it a day. You would get kicked to the curb, laughed at, and made fun of. And you can't treat. It's a great point. Again, you can't treat every market the same way.
No, and I never had an issue with them. They're running a business, so if you're spending money and the investment that you're putting into it is not working, well, you're going to have to cut those shows out. You're going to have to do certain things. But what Odyssey and Entercom, as it was named before that, what they would do, and they clearly did it to our show, and I can tell you right now, it was the reason that your host here, Pete Sheppard, ended up losing his job. Was they were taking successful shows. They were saying, "Oh, we can do it for 60% of what we're spending in expenses for that show, and then we'll take the 40% out of that show, and we'll try to prop up this other station in our cluster and see if we can make it work for them." And that didn't work. No. That didn't work. You should have taken the ones that were successful, continued to make sure that you gave them all the resources so they could be successful, and work separately on all of the other stations that were failing. But they didn't do that. They borrowed from one to pay the other, and both failed. Both failed.
And to their credit, they rehired me back twice. Even after I quit one time, 2 years after I got rehired in 2012, they still rehired me for the third time. Third time I left by my own.
That quitting was unbelievable. I got a text from Pete. You want to listen to my show today? I'm figuring, why am I listening? Why do I? It was a weekend show, right? You were doing weekends.
Yeah. I was doing whatever they wanted me to. It was basically full time.
And then. He just went ballistic on.
Well, that was on one person. That was only on one person. Wow. And David Portnoy is still one of the highest played videos of all time because we.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Portnoy caught you. Down in Rhode Island.
Yeah. Anyway, I am not. Let's get. I love having and talking to you about the business and all that stuff, and that's why in this day and age, if you don't have a digital platform, this network has continued to grow and grow and grow. Yep. I mean, you're screwed because and I hope, because like you, I have a lot of friends all over the place, and some of them text me from time to time at Sports Hub like, "What do you think's going to happen?" And all I keep saying to them is, they don't care about ratings. They don't care. They don't.
Well, they can't, because they're just trying to survive right now, and financially, it's very difficult for these companies because people, especially their music stations, people are getting away from it now. They're listening to Apple Music, Spotify. And so the only shows they're really listening to are maybe Morning Drive because maybe they want to hear somebody talk to them with some happy talk on the way to work. So, and I think the sports is the same way. There's too much out there in the digital platform where people are just being more natural, where people are sitting there and speaking the language the way two guys, and you're trying to appeal to a male audience, two guys would talk to each other. And so what's happened, I think, is a lot of this sports talk radio has now become so just sterilized and so, it's all the same. You turn these shows on and they're all the same. And then you've got people that don't understand it, have never done it before, and say, okay, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make the most crazy, outrageous statement. I mean, I don't mean to pick on Ted Johnson, who just started doing
please do. I
drive
would.
in Boston. I don't mean to pick on him because
you're not picking on him. You're telling the
he
truth.
was a really
I
good.
heard that.
He was a really good player. So I saw something on X the other day in which they put clips of the show.
Yeah.
And he is asked the question of what percentage would he give to Bill Belichick of the success of the New England Patriots dynasty. He starts going through it, and he's giving Brady 40%, and he's giving others 30% or whatever, and he gives Bill 10%.
Yeah.
10%. And I'm sitting there, and I'm listening to this thing, and the other two guys in the studio, to their credit, are sitting there saying, this is foolish. What are you talking about? And I think Ted just did it because he's already, people have been tweeting me because I don't listen that much to the shows anymore. I'm out of town. I'm out of town and I don't listen much.
Yeah.
So anyway, apparently he's already brought it up to 15%. Well, that tells me he's desperate right now. He made a stupid statement. He was trying to get some attention, and he did get attention with it. But I don't think that survives long term. When you start making dumb statements that people look at and say, wait a minute, there's no way. And I'm not sitting here saying that Brady wasn't more important than Belichick. I think quarterbacks, when you have franchise quarterbacks, especially when you have great ones, okay, they are always a bigger piece to the puzzle than the coaches are. I'd say the same thing in Kansas City right now. Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback. He is the biggest reason for the success. But don't tell me that Andy Reid is only worth 10%. Because their defense has been a savior this year because Mahomes has struggled in certain games. Okay, he's had some injury problems with the ankle. So the defense has held up. So give those other guys some credit. And Andy Reid's a great coach. But Belichick was the guy who not only drafted Brady, but right out of Brady's mouth, Brady will tell you he developed him.
Yes.
He developed Tom Brady. Tom Brady was, as the media, the national media, accused him for the first – it should have been the first 2 years of his NFL career, but they carried the narrative on for about 5 or 6 years. Oh, he's just a game manager.
Yeah,
Remember
I hated that.
Game
Yeah,
manager, right.
so
But the
ridiculous.
first couple of years, they're right. They kept him in a bubble, and they limited what he could possibly do. That was all Bill Belichick developing him. And then Bill Belichick developing rosters to build around him. 10%? But this is what sports talk radio has become. And it's great if you're only a listener. If you're only listening once a week and a guy makes an outrageous statement, you'll sit there and say, oh, outrageous statement. Okay, great. The problem is if you continue to do that, it's like fire in a theater. How many times are you going to say it to me? You know, it's like you're just throwing the shit against the wall out there with nothing to back it up. And guys that do stuff like that, and I don't mind hot takes. As a matter of fact, I think hot takes are great. But you better have some substance behind your hot take. You better have something to back it up. And I don't know about you, but I've been convinced over the years listening to people, whether I worked with them or just listening to them on the air, that had a hot take when they originally said it, I'd say, that's the craziest fucking thing I've ever heard of. And then I start thinking about it, and I say, you know what? Maybe that does make a little bit of sense. Yeah. This one doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's not personal with Ted John. That stuff to me is personal.
It is personal. He hates
totally
Belichick.
Personal with him. We all know it is.
Yeah, he hates Belichick. That's what it is. He believes that Belichick had something to do with the fact that he continued to get concussions and he kept on playing them or whatever. And none of us know really the details behind the the scenes of that. And I understand that, you're going to have situations where stuff is just personal to people, but you can't go and say something that's stupid on the radio. That's going to catch up
But
to
to
you.
your point too, and then we'll get into about dynasties and the threat that Patriot fans have and all that other nonsense and stuff. But to your point, I'm in the car yesterday. I listened to ESPN National Radio. Greeny would normally be on. Won't be much longer on because he's doing some other. And
he's done.
They're
with
talking
the radio.
about this. They lead the show with this, and it's such bullshit. I forget who was hosting, some fill-in host. He said, "Yeah, I'm talking to my buddy the other day. No, I'm talking to my buddy. When the Vegas Aces trade happened. When we really had a great discussion. Get the fuck out! No, you didn't. You don't sit there at the water cooler and talk about the WNBA. And I feel like it's forced, especially at ESPN. It's like they're forced to talk about it. Yeah. Great stuff when, Caitlin Clark's going up against, what's her name? Reese.
Angel Reese.
Great storyline. Other than that, I don't give a shit. And it's not something, if you start talking about the WNBA, unless you have a podcast or a specific show that's going to, and I'm not telling you not to watch it, but that is not the big, not even, it's not even in the top 20 of topics. People are not going to their friends and go, hey, how about that Vegas Aces trade? Woo, man, can you believe
Yeah, I'm with you. I have no problem if it's a specific WNBA podcast or whatever. They should be talking about. It's a narrowcast show. They should be doing it. And I'll watch a little bit every once in a while the NBA, but I couldn't name 5 players in the league for you.
I can name 2.
I just gave you
Clark,
2.
Reese,
Yeah, I did the same thing with me.
3.
Same thing with me.
So anyway, all right, enough of that. But let's get into,
good NBA, that WNBA talk. That was good, Pete. It was good. That'll boost your numbers.
No, that's what I mean. You can't imagine. But imagine have to forced to talk about it on a national radio show.
Couldn't do it.
No, I'd be like, if a producer handed me that, I'd go, we're not doing it. Yeah. I don't go tell the bosses I'm not doing it. I'm not. You're going to hear a bunch of clicks go off.
Well, that's the other thing I think that happens in sports talk radio, and I was always against this. And I had program directors who I would battle all the time, and they would say to me, "You have a 4-hour show, and what you need to do is you need to come up with like 12 topics, 15 topics." And I'm sitting there going, "Well, wait a minute. Everybody right now at work at the water cooler is talking about this one topic. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do 4 hours." On this one topic. I might sprinkle in a couple of different points on a couple of other topics during the 4 hours, but I'm going to stay with it. And I said, I'll tell you why. Because go do the research. Nobody listens to a radio show for 4 hours. They listen for 15 minutes at a pop. Yep. Okay? So I want to catch them in that 15 minutes that they're listening to the number one topic. Because if I'm at topic 11 or topic 12, which might be the WNBA, guess what they're doing? They're pushing the damn button. Yeah. That's what they're doing. So it's all foolish, but I think programmers, they teach these people to do that. And ESPN is notorious for it, Pete. Let's talk about as much different topics as we possibly can.
I agree. I was going to get the Celtics a little bit. I'm not concerned. I mean, I'm
a little bit concerned.
I'm a little bit concerned, but I think this break, I think a lot of teams, get through the All-Star break, this little break, and then I still think they're going to be a very formidable team when they're all healthy and ready to go. And last night they did what they had to do. I mean, I get frustrated with them from time to time. The Houston loss was
that was terrible. The Houston loss, fourth quarter, terrible.
When you're up by 10 plus in the fourth quarter, they've lost 4 times this year like that. That can't happen. I don't expect that to happen in the playoffs. I don't want to see bad habits develop. But I do want to. There was one thing, he got going a little bit later on, but I'd like to see Jason Tatum get going a little bit earlier. I know Porzingis has been great lately in the first quarter, but Jason Tatum to me seems a little off.
So that's why. So I think, to me, in watching this team, all year long, they've had defensive lapses. Okay? Now, they had some of those earlier last year, but they didn't have nearly as many in the second half. They seemed to be really focused last year in the second half. The thing that disturbs me right now is there are some really good young teams in that league. They saw one the other night in Houston, Oklahoma City, obviously, Cleveland. There's some really good young teams. Those young teams are going to bust their ass, and they're going to play their heart out during the regular season games, okay? They want the recognition right now. They want to come out as the number one seed out of their conference. So I think they're facing a lot of that. They're facing everybody's best every single night.
got the X on their back.
But they're having terrible letdowns, Pete, against shitty teams.
Yes.
In the fourth quarter, and you ready for this one? At home.
Mm-hmm.
They've lost 9 games at home now, I believe.
They're better on the road.
Yes.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, that to me is disturbing. Okay. Now, I do like the better road record, and they seem to be playing much better on the road. I think that, will treat them well when they get into the postseason, because they're going to have to go and win a road game probably, because it doesn't look like they're going to be the number 1 seed. They're probably going to be the 2 or the 3. But I agree with you in that I think that the season is so damn long for these guys, and they played so deep into the season last year, that there's just a fatigue factor. Usually the fatigue factor happens early March through March, and then you wake up at the beginning of April, and by the middle of April, you're ready to play the real playoff games. So I'm a little disturbed that it's happening this early. When it comes to Tatum, I think what's messed him up a little bit, because he was off to a tremendous start. I mean, MVP-like start. They brought Porzingis back into the lineup. And once they did that, they had to work him in. And once they did that, they kind of altered everything that they were doing. And the one thing I'll say about Tatum that is different from Jason Tatum from 2 years ago is that now he will adapt to what you need him to be. If you need him to set everybody else up, because as Houston was doing the other night, they're just blitzing him every time he touches the ball. And every time he's coming off of a pick, they're just blitzing him. He's going to give up the ball now. 2 years ago, he'd say, screw you, I'm playing hero ball, and I'm going to find a way of being able to score. So I think he's handling it the right way, but I think they're going to have to fix it, and this comes up with the coach, and I think I'm not sure he gets right now what's going on. He's going to have to figure out how they get into that comfort zone in which they can feed off of Porzingis, because he brings so much to the table, and at the same time, not screw around with Tatum or Brown.
Now, the other thing, too, with the Celtics, then I'll move on quickly, last few minutes here with, people being afraid of dynasties and all that stuff. Trade deadline's coming up. We know about the sale and all that stuff. Is it possible, and, I totally respect your opinion when it comes to this and trades and all that stuff and capitalism and everything, because of the situation with Rick Rosbeck and the sale of the team, and you hear the rumors out there, eventually it seems like Drew Holiday or Jaylen Brown's name comes up a lot. Would they ever, you think they would make some type of a deal at the trade deadline this year because of the pending sale of this team and the money involved?
Yeah, I've seen the rumors out there. I'm not really sure. I am a fond fan of capitalism, by the way. But I like it when they give you paychecks every couple of weeks. Those are nice to see. I would say this, Pete, that it's so hard for them in the position they're in to actually make a trade, because they have to bring money back. Okay, and then you're going through 2 or 3 teams and then you basically don't get anything in return. So you end up giving up a really good player. You end up giving up draft picks as well, and you get literally nothing in return. That just doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't. Now, I'm not saying that this roster would be safe over the next 2 or 3 years with a new ownership. I think that is all subject to change. When you get into the offseason, when you've got a little bit more flexibility to do stuff, I think that's all possible. And it depends on, the owner and what the owner wants to do. The one thing we do know is they're in the double tier there of luxury tax. And so it's going to be very difficult for any new owner to come in here and make money on this franchise. They're going to be a contender for the next 4, 5, maybe 6 years. But to win a championship is going to be a little bit more that's going to be easier, I think, than actually making money with this franchise.
Yeah, and fans don't care about making money. They
don't care, right.
They're contending, and then you throw on top of the fact that they got to pay rent to the Bruins for the building. You throw
they
that in.
They don't own their own building, correct. Yeah. So unless you want to do it as a hobby, my suggestion would be probably doesn't make sense. That's why I thought that Red Sox Fenway Sports Group made absolutely no sense, because they're a company now that is built on expansion, but they're built on expansion of taking, lesser desirable properties and building them up and making them more valuable. All right. And that's not what the Celtics are right now.
All right, finally, let's.
You afraid of the dynasty talk? Is this getting to you?
No, I'm a fan of dynasties. I don't care who it is or what. They don't bother me. I mean, I kind of like it, and certainly we've gone in our lifetime with a bunch of teams on the whole. Even the Red Sox in the 2000s. I mean, they were kind of like one. Yep. 04, 07, 13, 18. But, like I'm not bothered by. I'm picking the Eagles to win because I've been on the Eagles being the best team in football since about week 6, top to bottom. Plus, they've saved.
You know they're not going to win. You know what the refs are going to do. You know what's going to happen. You know that your show in 2 weeks from now, you'll be pissing and moaning because Mahomes will get away with something and they'll get an unbelievable call that will go in their direction. And people, get ready for it.
It's interesting. We'll bring up the Buffalo.
I don't want to ruin your life, but get ready for it.
No, we'll see. But I am not afraid. I mean, the back page of the Herald yesterday or today, Chiefs threaten Patriots dynasty. I mean, I just don't. It's not. So
here's what I think about it.
That team 3 different times over a 20-year period and won a whole bunch of Super Bowls. So I'm not threatened. If the Chiefs should win, I'm not going to be like, Brady's legacy is being overshadowed now by Patrick. I just
so it's what we were talking about before, where everybody is into these hot takes today. Okay, and it's the newest phase because people are looking at it saying, oh, my God, there might be a three-peat, and so therefore they're going to be a dynasty. So instead of really taking 2 steps back and logically looking at the difference of the New England Patriots and the Kansas City Chiefs, people are just going to take black or white, and they're going to just decide, I got to take a hot take or whatever. Here's what I would say. When you take 3 steps back, there's no denying if Kansas City wins three-peat, they're doing something that nobody's ever done, okay? They're doing something that is exceptional. That, to me, is a very powerful short-term dynasty, okay? There's no denying that.
Yep.
When you take the New England Patriots over a 20-year period, and granted, same quarterback, but a lot of other personnel, and some of those Super Bowls, including the one against the Rams, the 13-3 game, was all won on defense. Yeah. Okay? So you can look at it and say, over a 20-year period, did any NFL team ever play better than that team or accomplish more?
That's what I
The answer is no. Now, with Kansas City, if they win 3 in a row, absolutely you got to give them all the credit in the world. That is a short-term dynasty. But people won't do that, Pete, because it doesn't play on these shows. Yeah. It just doesn't play. We can't be logical. We can't sit there and give credit to both. It's like giving trophies to both of them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe they both deserve trophies in this case because they're both accomplishing something, albeit different, one short-term and one long-term.
Yeah, I mean, when the Bulls won 3 in a row, did that diminish what the Celtics did?
When the Buffalo Bills lost 4 Super Bowls in a row, did that diminish the other teams that lost only 1 in a row? No.
No, the Vikings were going, hey, we did that too. We were the first to move 4. Hey, Buffalo, welcome to the club. I do feel badly. I don't know if you've talked to Freddie Smirlis or not. I mean, I haven't talked, I do feel bad. I had Vic Carucci on my show last Friday. And
I love Vic Carucci.
I loved him. We got in a little heated debate about the referees, and I wasn't talking about holding calls that can be called on replay. I was talking about specific calls if they happened in the game, and sure as shit, there were 3 of them that were absolutely, in my opinion, ridiculous. But you think that is going to happen again, that Philadelphia, despite Nick Sirianni just staying out of the way, and he's the 10%, by the way, staying out of the way, let everybody else do their thing. You still think the officials are going to come up with some sort of a scheme that's going to...
Well, a couple of things. I have a lot more faith in Patrick Mahomes in a huge game than I do with Jalen Hurts. I do. And I thought Hurts played well, obviously, last week. But let's face it. I mean, the Commanders made so many mistakes, and they're young, still a young team, and they've got a future. Trust me, with Jaden Daniels, they have got a future. That kid is exceptional. I just think that Kansas City has got that experience. I've seen it over the years that pays off big. And was it Adam Schefter that put out the other day a list of the penalties situation for Kansas City in the postseason, and they're all weighted to one side. And a lot of times I think what happens is players are so freaking good. They're so beyond human-like that you think that they can do anything and everything, and therefore you give them the break. because you say to yourself in your mind, an official says, "Oh, I think he can do that." Mahomes is getting some calls here that just shouldn't be. I mean, the out of bounds stuff where he's basically flopping out of bounds. He's keeping 1 foot in and flopping out of bounds. Somebody's got to pick up on that.
He's going to get crushed next year when that happens. When he does that, I tell you, someone's going to, don't care if they get knocked out of the game, thrown out of the game. Somebody is going to pop him next year when he least, it'll be out of bounds and nobody's going to care. It's going to happen.
But somebody will get a 3-game suspension for that probably.
But then when you have Josh Allen, clearly, you have Josh Allen go a third of the football over the line for a first down, and the play before that with the running back that had a first down. I mean, stuff like that. The catch by Xavier that should have been at the very least a jump ball. I mean, it should have been no catch. I mean, those are the plays. You go back to every single Chiefs game, and it seems like.
Doesn't that worry you when you're sitting there picking the Eagles? Doesn't that concern you? Do you suddenly think that that's all going away?
No,
it's happening for a reason. It's happening for a reason, and I'm not saying that the NFL is fixed. The NFL likes competition. They like new teams in new blood in the playoffs. So I don't think the NFL is doing it. I just think the officials, just as a habit right now, think that these guys are so damn good that they do stuff like that. But the spotting of the ball, especially when we're doing this push and all this other crap, the spotting of the ball right now is ridiculous. Anybody that's watching on TV, when you see the two officials come from the two sidelines, you can sit there and say, whoa, the ball's over there. Yeah. It's not over there. Exactly. I mean, you can't put a chip in the ball or something to come up with a more.
I've been talking that for years. Put the chip in the ball.
Oh, I've been saying that for years.
Here's what I don't understand in that game at the end when Kincaid dropped the ball, and it would have been a great catch. I understand that, but okay. I've heard the radio broadcast. Obviously, we heard Jim Nantz and Tony Romo do the T. Okay, flag on the play. Now, flag comes up immediately on your screen, the little yellow alert. Okay, I never saw it, but clearly radio and TV both saw it. And all of a sudden, it was picked up. Every single time the officials pick up a flag that's not a penalty, they always say, there's no penalty for pass interference. The ball was tipped. There's no penalty for an eligible man.
You don't hear under his breath. You don't hear under his breath when he actually says, "And we apologize to the Kansas City Chiefs for actually dropping the flag."
But where was the two things that really pissed me off in that game? One, there was never an official reaction about this flag that got picked up, and then the dumbass Kansas City pool reporters never went into the after the game. Never went in and questioned. Was it Sean Hockley? I forget. Never went in and questioned the referee. The pool reporter for Kansas City did not go in and ask any questions, so we never got a reason. Even if we didn't agree with it, we got nothing.
Yeah, no, and I think there were a lot of people that have been very skeptical over the last few weeks, and I'm seeing a lot of media people that wouldn't normally cross this line and actually start talking about, oh, is this fixed? Is the officiating, leaning over to Kansas City? And a lot of people are doing that now, Pete. And I think, so it'll be interesting to see what the reaction is on Super Bowl Sunday. Does the league go to the officials and say, hey, guys, we've been a little out of focus the last few weeks, and, let's make sure that we call I don't know. Do they put an emphasis on this with the officials? Because I think there are a lot of people that are questioning it. And if you have, let's say the same thing happens in the Super Bowl, we're crowning the Kansas City Chiefs, three-peat, and there's questions in this game, the way we had questions in the last couple of games, that won't be a good look. Will not be a good look.
It will not be. Big O, thanks for taking a few look at the sun.
Anytime,
The sun is coming up behind you. Beautiful background at your home.
It's freezing out here. I don't know. I know Florida, because my son's down there, and he said it just got warm the last day. You guys have been freezing. But it
was bad. As bad as it's been down here with the, in the 30s in the morning and the 40s and cold. But now we're back up to proper temperatures in the 70s and 80s.
Well, get your little Speedo and get out there and get some sun on that little body of yours.
I'll send you a picture. Big O, thanks a lot. Hall of Fame broadcaster, Big O, Glenn Ordway, and we'll talk again very soon. Thanks so much for taking a few, Glenn. Appreciate you.
Anytime, Pete.
All right. All the best to you and your fam. There it is. You too. All righty. All right. So there it is in a cloud. Just like that. Gone. All right, Angel. We're a little bit over today. But
I know when Big O had mentioned that no one listens to 4 hours worth of radio. I must be the only clown maybe in the world that actually does it. But when you get hooked, like especially when there's a personality that you really want to listen to. If Glenn was on for 4 hours, I would listen to him. But it's just if you're a fan of old radio and the way things were before, you easily take the time and listen in.
Oh no, and I think nowadays it's different. But back in the day when Glenn and I were doing our show and everything else, and we used to have TSL, time spent listening. That's a category is for ratings and all that stuff. And ours would be off the chart. For a 4-hour show, we'd have most people listen well over 3 hours. Most people listened to the station at the time in a 12-hour period, like 10. It was off the chart like crazy. Off the chart crazy with that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm sure it was like that in Philadelphia, too.
Yep.
And New York in some markets where people just leave it on that station, all the time. But anyway, anything else coming up today? Is a Q coming up this afternoon?
Q should be back in the saddle this afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m. Of course, there'll be the replays of the show available up on SR1029thegame.com. And I know I've been saying it every single day. I'm just crossing the fingers that the merchandise will be done between today and tomorrow. Therefore, tomorrow morning we can talk about it. But almost done.
My foot is totally asleep.
Put some shock therapy to it.
Joey says, well, once again, Pete, thank you. Thank you, guys. Thanks to Bill. Thanks to Trevor checking in, everybody. Let's see, Bill, all those guys. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to all my guests today, the big old Glenn Ordway, Michelangelo, Bill Sparrows, and Trevor Harris. Tomorrow, tremendous show coming up for you tomorrow once again. No Gabe Morency. We're going to give him a week off until we get him back for the Super Bowl. But lots of great stuff, lots of great content coming up tomorrow here on the Pete Sheppard Show. Thanks, Angel. You are the best. I will text you later, my friend, with tomorrow's guest list. Thanks so much. I'm Pete. I'm back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Keep it right here with the Coastal Sports Networks. See ya.